what's going on? I'm Aaron, host of the CHC podcast. Back again with another movie commentary. I feel like we're getting quite fond of these. Joined once again by I can't refer to you as a guest anymore. Co-host, um, really good friend, to
Yep.
name a few things. Tom from the Strange Brew podcast. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, man. It is funny because I feel like we're really enjoying the commentary because we're building a strong, unified friendship. I feel like especially with me and you, but even just the scope of Strange Brew podcast of like me, you, Anton, and then soon to be Billy, another co-host of Strange Brew podcast. But essentially, that's how you are now. It's like you're not really a guest; you're like technically a co-host. And the commentaries to me are a lot of fun, and they're also a lot of easy to record because we just have banter. It's easy. It comes off the top of the tongue, and it I genuinely just enjoy watching movies with you and more or less commentating on it, but it seems more like making fun of it because a lot of times that's what we're doing.
I know, yeah, and it's weird because it's not that I don't like the movies, and I don't know if it come across that way or not, but yeah, I think when you're doing a commentary and you've seen a movie so many times, I
Mhm.
think maybe sometimes it's a little bit more fun to critique some of the more ridiculous things.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't not like these movies. Like the whole reason it's kind of they are fun in that way. Like, and you start to realize that maybe the mistakes that some of the producers or editing does in hindsight when you're thinking, well, why was that added? But all these movies that we've done and commentated on, I do like them. I like them as films. I've revisited them that many times. Um, I just can't help that Halloween 2 was a disaster in my opinion, and I there's a reason I guess why I didn't revisit that one so often.
Yeah, I was actually kind of excited going back into that because I hadn't seen it in so long that I had this like vague memory of like, yeah, this was trash. And then I was like looking at the trailer and I was like, actually maybe it's not as bad, or maybe those parts I remember being terrible only account for like 10 or 15 minutes. I was like, maybe
Yeah.
it's actually a really good movie, but I
No,
don't know.
it's and if you've listened to this one for some reason you click this one first, go back and check that one out because it's hilarious and funny content, but then I think we're saying a lot of things that other people were thinking while watching the movie. And then there's some people out there, right, that they enjoy horror movies so much and, or maybe a certain genre or a director, and they don't want to, I don't know, shit on their art, you could say. But sometimes it's okay to do that because these movies, sometimes they're fun and they're campy and they're rushed by production. And it's okay to call out these I don't know these style of movies because it's kind of like a lot of times horror movies are rushed and they're like, okay, put it right out there. We have no time for editing. We're just gonna put it out there because we need to make this money now, type of things. And you kind of get what you get, as I said on the other episodes.
Yeah, so I don't think I mentioned it there in the intro. Actually, this commentary is for a 1998 slasher film. I imagine anybody who loves horror films will probably either have heard or seen this one. It's
Yes.
Jamie Blanks's Urban Legend.
Is that the director then?
Yeah, yeah, he's an Australian guy.
Oh, I almost thought it was a chick. I guess
Yeah,
Jamie
no.
is no, what's the fucking what's that word now? I can't think of it. Gender neutral? Is that the word for
Oh,
you know how in your neck of the well, not your neck of the woods, you know how like in Britain, for some strange reason some males are named Ashley?
yeah, we
And
get a
over
lot of
here
that.
that's a really weird thing.
We get a lot of that actually, where like dudes have like what I would consider a chick's name and vice versa.
Is there any guy's named Stacy?
Probably.
See, it's just so strange. We were just talking about that actually on the sexual ghost part 2 episode.
Yeah.
No, this one's interesting. I actually like this movie a lot. Like for what it is. Like I remember enjoying this one and Final Cut, which maybe should come later on for another commentary. But Final Cut is enjoyable too. And these movies, like I said, don't need to be perfect to be enjoyable. It's okay to watch these campy, shitty, sometimes horror movies because it's. And I'm not saying this one is shitty, but I'm saying that I like some pretty bad, people would consider bad, tasteless horror movies, but it's all part of the fun.
Same as this is one of those movies that I would always consider in my like. I used to call them guilty pleasures, but comfort movies that I
Yeah.
watched like multiple times. So this was my
Oh,
first
that's
ever
sick.
copy of Urban Legend.
It's
I
like a
got
box. Oh, is that the VHS?
yeah.
That's sick that you have the VHS, man. All my VHS movies are gone a
This is
long
one
time
of
ago.
like a small stack that I actually still have, and then obviously I went from that. Then we upgraded to DVD.
That's cool.
Then from that, then I upgraded
Blu-ray.
to the Blu-ray. Then from that, I upgraded
Oh
to
my
the
god.
Scream Factory Collector's Edition.
What's the difference?
There's like a shit ton of special features, like newly recorded like commentaries and stuff like that.
That's
Um,
cool. I
like,
can't believe you have that many versions of this movie.
oh no, I'm not done. I'm not done. There's
Oh
more again.
Jesus.
And then there's a UK company called 88 Films that do all these like
Yeah.
re-releases as well. So they released the Urban Legend trilogy box set,
That's cool.
which
Trilogy. Is there a third one?
oh yeah, oh yes,
I've never seen that. Is it
oh
bad?
god, it's like the we should probably actually make this a trilogy set of commentary.
Let's do
Um,
it because I've never seen the third one. And like we've said before too, there's like that's fucking cool. Some of the
yeah,
case covers.
so this one has I don't know like obviously you can't make it out, but from here down, that's all the special features that they've added on top of
Oh,
what
that's
was already
cool.
on it. And then obviously it came with Final Cut, which you already mentioned, and
Yeah.
then this is the final part of the
Oh, I've
trilogy.
never seen that one. That's the Bloody Mary one, right?
It's so
I've
trash.
heard about it. I'm sure it is. And we've talked about this too is like I'm excited too to do commentaries on there's certain films even as a horror fan that I've never seen, like I've never seen any of the VHS movies, which I keep wanting to visit, but now that we're all doing this commentary and we've connected through this life of podcasting and becoming like best friends essentially from across the world,
Hmm.
is I'm excited to do that stuff and be like, oh, I've never seen this. Let's do this. And now me and Aaron are shooting ideas at each other all the time, being like, oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do this. So this is never going to stop. And there's a lot of stuff coming. And yeah, like I said, I really do enjoy the commentaries.
Yeah, me too. To give people, I suppose, a really quick breakdown of what this movie's about, if
Yeah.
somehow you haven't seen it and you're listening to this commentary, or for some reason you decided to do that. So, Urban Legend tells the story of a group of college students at a remote New England university. The focus of the story is Natalie, a beautiful, academically gifted student who has a dark secret in her past. She and her friends are enrolled in the folklore class being taught by Professor Wexler, who's actually played by Robert Englund.
Yes. Me.
Um, Wexler regales his class with urban legends, which include Pendleton's own urban legend about a psych professor who murdered 6 students 25 years ago. When several students are found dead, she is the first one to suspect that there's a killer on campus, especially after she has ties to all of the victims. Soon enough, she finds that her friends are being picked off one by one and that her own murder will be the killer's ultimate urban legend.
And I was going to ask you too before we get into this. What was the very first urban legend that you heard of? And did you ever watch that show? I don't know if it was a Canadian thing. It might have been. It was called like Freaky Stories to Tell in the Dark or something like that. And it was like a cartoon style show. And we had it on YTV, which is a Toronto company. And it was like it showed like all these different urban legends and stuff like that in cartoon form, but more like target towards kids. It wasn't as scary, but they did tell a lot of the famous urban legends, like the bed bugs at the hotel, and even like the guy with the hook and stuff like that. Did you ever like? Where did you really first hear about urban legends?
I'm trying to think about that show that you're talking about. I'm not sure. Possibly.
It
It
might have
sounds.
made it your way. It might have not.
It sounds really familiar. See, a lot of times with stuff like that, the UK would have got it, and obviously throughout a lot of the 90s and early 2000s, most of our TV was filtered through the UK, so like we would have got a lot of that stuff without even.
It's like a bug at the beginning. There's like a beetle and some like worm, and they're like look like a puppet. It's fucking strange, and they talk about it and they kind of bring in the show. It was weird, but I remember I liked everything strange and scary. Still do, but when I was a kid, especially, I was like
Yeah.
super into it.
For me, the first urban legend I ever heard of, and it was actually one that, for some reason over here, like a lot of kids in like school or if there was ever a time where people would be staying over at your house or you would go to stay at somebody else's house, for some reason I always remembered this story in particular being brought up was the babysitter and the man upstairs or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, The Call or whatever, because they did that
Yeah.
movie on it.
So it's essentially, which is another comfort movie of mine, When a Stranger Calls. I love
The
the 2007 remake or reimagining.
uh Yeah, maybe that like all these things like that could be a commentary because I haven't seen that. I think since I saw it in theaters, and it was like one of those like big movies where all the teenagers were coming out to watch it, and like people were like kind of like drunk. People were sitting in the aisleways. I don't know how they got away with this, but like back in the day, I'd be like if you just came in like. People were just coming to these movies, and these girls we knew were just like there was no more seats, so they sat on the floor like in the aisleway, and then this was a movie where everyone was like screaming and jumping and like yelling and shit like that, where everyone was like super into it. And I don't think I've seen it since then. So that one could also be a good commentary too.
I think that'd be really interesting. I have a lot of love for that movie, and I've done a lot of research into like behind the scenes and the making of. But yeah, I suppose for anybody who doesn't know, it's essentially the story essentially follows When a Stranger Calls plot. Um, as the story goes, a young woman is babysitting, and after she tucks the kids into bed, she gets a phone call from someone who says, "Check the children."
Have you
Um,
checked the children?
yeah, which is just like, I don't know why this used to freak me out when I was younger. Um, this is also an early origin story of the call is coming from inside the house, as the
Yeah.
cops tell the babysitter that someone murdered that the person that murdered the kids has phoned her from upstairs. This shows how fast these stories spread and how people believe them, which I think is true. Like, I mean, I'm from a relatively small town in Ireland, and that was like, growing up, that story was told so many times.
Yeah, what's that called? The telephone game where it's like so many people say it that it becomes different as it goes down. Like you could be like, oh, I met. I'm trying to think of something funny, but it's probably not going to be. But like you met a chick, and then she dumped you for another guy, and then it goes down the road, and then by the time it gets to the guy down the street, it's like this girl dumped you for this guy, and then she gave you gonorrhea, and then you had to go to the
Yeah,
hospital to
yeah.
try to get rid of the gonorrhea. And it's like I never even fucking said that, man. It's like that game where like, and you hear and you see it today in society with a lot of things too. Is like when things get repeated constantly even when it comes to misinformation or conspiracies too, that may have some like they might hold total truth to it, and then the time somebody else has got their hands on it, and then it's like added where it becomes unbelievable because people keep adding spin and stuff on it, and then people are like, "That's not real. That's unbelievable. That's like all made up," and that's like, yeah, but parts of it holds some truth.
And I suppose upon doing a little bit of backstory on urban legends and stuff before we'd done this commentary,
Yeah,
um, I suppose like many people was under the assumption that urban legends were kind of a thing of the past, but I think it's just evolved really because
yeah,
I think a lot of people think, with the invention of something like the internet and social media, obviously that stuff doesn't exist anymore. But I think that's a load of bollocks. Like, I mean, even look at, and I feel like I bring this up on every single show, but like, even look at something like the fucking pandemic. That whole
yeah.
shit about like, oh, patient zero was some dude in China who ate a bat, and it was like this big thing, and then COVID happened. And it's like, that's like some of the biggest, and it's funny because that whole like China thing over here, we used to call it Chinese whispers. Um,
What? Why?
yeah, like years ago, that was like a game we would play where somebody would start out like a story, and everybody would only be able to whisper it into the person to their left's ear. So
Yeah.
I would tell you like something, and then I by the time it would come around, like it would be
That's the
all shit.
telephone game. They used to
Yeah,
do that in school where
yeah,
they would like someone would like tell a story or some sort of like just a sentence, and then they have someone I think go out in the hall. They do this during school, and then by the time, and then they got everyone to pass it along, and then the person that started would go outside, and then when they come back in, the last person to get the story in the telephone game, they would tell the person that was outside, and they'd be like, "No, that's like not even close to what I said,"
Yeah, that and
and,
that
and
like
it just shows how
over here.
misinformation and things like that do spread.
Yeah, and on case in point, like it's so weird that we used to call that Chinese whispers, and then we use the example of something like COVID. But like, there's a classic example where people say, "Oh, you can't, misinformation doesn't really, urban legends are not a thing." It's just like a modern day urban legend though, because I mean,
Because it
since
didn't come
then,
from a bad. It
yeah,
didn't
like
come from a
yeah,
bad.
like since
Like
then
no
now,
way.
when you suggest that to somebody, they're like, "What you read?" Like even my grandparents, like, "What you really believe some dude ate a bat in China and caused that?" But I
No,
remember
they
at
was
the
created in a
time,
laboratory.
yeah, I remember at the time though when that story came out, like there was a lot of people who were like, "Yeah, that's actually really plausible. I can't
Yeah,
believe
they
that."
believe
And
that. There's comedians talking about it.
I'm not gonna lie, over here, I remember like at the start of like that whole inception of the COVID thing, and nobody really knew what it was, and everyone was like shit scared, and it was like, oh, it's gonna be like fucking 28 days later. I remember being out in like, grocery stores and supermarkets and different places, and like anyone who
Mhm.
looked anyway Asian, you could tell that everyone was like, "Oh, the fuck, sick."
Which is so bad too, but that's it's a stereotype that in being formed. It's the same thing with like SARS and stuff like that. I remember
Mm-hmm.
like the SARS thing like came up in the early 2000 ish, and then obviously people from China and Asian countries were wearing masks, and all of us were like, "What the fuck?" And then it disappeared a lot of times, at least for our side. A lot of these things seem to like appear and then they disappear. Like it's just like, what is this set up for? A lot of these things. This is the conspiracy side to it that eventually we'll dive into. But we did an urban legends episode at the very beginning of the show, and I decided to cut it because I'm going through and cutting maybe some of the stuff where we were maybe belligerently drunk and just being belligerent and offensive just for no reason. And some of them get put on Patreon for the Lost Tapes episodes, which are fairly funny for people that actually enjoy the show and know what we're going for, and that actually choose to pay for the $3 a month for extra content, essentially to get like bonus episodes and plus some older stuff to like, whoa, like Tom was fucking wasted on that episode. And I would like to dive back into it. We did like an urban legends sort of like part two. We talked about like lesser known urban legends, but I would like to dive in again, maybe if it's even me, you, and Billy or something, like the main like urban legends that people are most known for. Because before we get into this, I just want to say like Bloody Mary was a huge thing for I think a
Yeah.
lot of kids, and it started I think for me, and I've said before, and this is another segue to something we might do, and I think we should, is something on Candyman. And when me and my friend Austin watched Candyman, we literally like, and I said this before on the one episode, was we turn off the lights and we like we're like fucking pretty much like holding each other kind of shit. Like I was holding him from behind, and I was like, "Say it, man, say it!" Like Candyman, like, and even though it was a movie, it's just that same idea. And then obviously we did. I remember like doing Bloody Mary with like these two twins that like lived down the street. And me and Austin used to hang out with them a lot. This kid I grew up with, and then so we would do that, and they're like, we'd try to get everyone freaked out, and we were all like scared, but it was kind of like a fun scared where you're like, you don't really think something's gonna happen, but no one was home. Like there was no parents there. It was all of us, and we're in this big house, and we're trying to freak each other out.
And it's funny to hear you say that because I feel like, and I'm imagining that a lot of people listening to this will probably have a similar experience, and it kind of ties into, I suppose, the whole plot of this movie, where it's like
Yeah,
everybody either has a story and experience, or it's like, oh no, no, my uncle, somebody that he knows, this actually happened to them, and like the Bloody Mary thing, and even Candyman. Like I remember vividly having situations where like we were doing this thing, and it was like you said, it was like a fun scared, but at the same time I remember always like coming out of those situations being like, I wonder, is there any truth to any of this? How did this like happen?
yeah. And well, it's like, look at the Slenderman thing, which I think that like all these things that we can segue into doing episodes on, because I would like to talk about Slenderman and a lot of these ideas as we're talking about. I'm like, okay, well, that's an easy one for like me, you, and Anton to do, or if Billy wants to jump on, where we can have a dynamic of all of our different experiences, especially when it comes to like urban legends. But Candyman or Slenderman was just like a like story essentially that came from like an artist of a depiction that he put online for like a contest or something like that. And then it kind of spiraled and kids started to believe it. And then someone got murdered over it, which will be a episode for another day. But how these urban legends can end up leading to real legends.
which is fucking wild. Like it's actually
It's
wild when you think
crazy.
about it.
So like I guess we should just get into it, but there's like honestly that's just a little preview that and especially if people want it, which I'm sure people would be interested, is like for like a swapcast style thing. Maybe we will really dive into like an hour and a half, even like two hours of like talking about urban legends and getting some of the most prominent ones and maybe some that are even just plain ridiculous just for the fun of it because there is a lot out there. You'd be surprised. When me and Billy did like the kind of part two, which I did keep up because it was fairly funny, is there was like this urban legend about skin shoes and these skin shoes that are in this museum and there's some really fucking weird ones out there and I think it would be very interesting to dive into it, especially with even all four of us because there's so many different people's opinions on urban legends because every kid has heard about a urban legend.
There's there's a documentary out there. I think it goes by a couple of different names, but I think it was released on YouTube recently. It's something. It's something under the title of like "Missing Children of Staten Island" or something like that. Now that's not the actual name of the documentary. It's called Urban Legends Cropsy.
Oh, I know what Cropsy is. What
Um,
you want to cover that?
Dude, I want that documentary is one of my favorite like pieces of media where they cover that whole like real life disappearance of all those kids in Staten Island and
Yeah,
the dude that
it was Vinny. It was Vinny from Jersey Shore.
and it's like the dude who took the fall for it, but I still am undecided as to whether he was actually the person who done it all.
I've ever
Um,
seen bits and pieces of it, and
it's wild, man. That story
it's
is
weird.
crazy, and it's really like eerie and kind of. And the guy and girl who made that documentary actually have a newer documentary out called I think it's just called Urban Legends, where it
Yeah.
does some of like the more obscure urban legends, which was quite interesting. So I would love to do an episode on urban legends.
Now we'll have to dive into that, and that like is something we could do any time of the year. It doesn't need to be around Halloween because it's such a prominent thing in our culture, and yeah, and again, like we said, like me and Aaron can talk all day about some of this stuff, and I think there's a lot coming, and we literally are starting to have like a laundry list of ideas. So, and now gives us this ability to pick at it and be like, hey, what do you think people want? And there's gonna be stuff coming for Christmas and like the winter style season, which I'm excited for. Some like Christmas movies. There's some that I want to talk to you about off air that we should definitely like do. And there's probably some that I've never seen that you're like, oh, we should do this. Like I watched last year for the first time, Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Oh,
and that
nice,
shit's fucked, man.
nice.
So let's so where we want it for everybody is you can rent if you don't like this is probably on Prime, you could probably find it on Netflix. Obviously, when you're doing this stuff, we don't want you to really pay anything, but if it is cheap on YouTube, it's fairly easy to find. It's on Prime too, but and some people, you guys that are horror fans, might just own this in general, and you can pop it in your DVD player or your PlayStation or whatever and watch it. So what we're going for is just before the tri-state, where it's a kind of black and it's going to fade in to the tri-star with the unicorn pony thing. So that's where you want to kind of be. Most movies, I think, should start right at that point. But if for some reason you just have a copy or a different link that starts somewhere else, you kind of want to have it as the TriStar is coming in. So everyone's ready. Get it all set up. You can pause this, and then we're gonna press play on three. So when I say the number three, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and as I say three, you gotta press play. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Awesome. Yes, you should have the unicorn coming in.
Nobody can hear my audio, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's okay. I'd rather not
No,
get done for
you're
copyright.
good. Yeah, yeah, you're good. I can't hear it because I know we've had that issue for a sec. Did you ever that candle reminds me of? Did you ever see Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Love it.
Yeah, that old show. I wish
I
that was
love
a
it
Canadian
so
thing.
much. Yeah, I know. I have the full box set of that somewhere on.
That's fucking cool. I'd revisit that shit too.
Dude,
Honestly, I haven't seen it
that
in
is
years.
so fucking good.
We should like do shorter commentaries even for the Patreon for everybody, even off stuff like that. Like, do you remember the one with like the leprechaun?
You know what would be really good actually, because we could pick, like, you have shows like Goosebumps. Are You
Yeah.
Afraid of the Dark? There's a lot of other ones I can remember as well, and we could, like, I don't know, pick our favorite episodes each or something from them.
No, 100%. Like, do you remember the leprechaun one where the
Mm-hmm.
kid like slowly starts turning? That one is like actually kind of freaked me out as a kid.
What were they called again? The Midnight Society.
Yeah, something like oh
They
yeah, the
throw
Midnight Society.
they
Yeah,
like throw the dust on the fucking
yeah,
the fire.
and they tell ghost stories, which is kind of fun.
I
Like
love
I would
that
have
shit.
done that as a kid if I could.
Yeah, I love that shit. Even now, like, even though it's like so dated, I think I actually even like it more.
Yeah,
Also, this movie is filmed and set in Toronto.
is it actually?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I did not know that. I should watch for some stuff. I didn't know that, but Toronto's fairly cheap, which a lot of like you know that show Handmaid's Tale?
Mm-hmm.
That's filmed in like the city next door to me that I used to live in.
Oh,
It's
really?
filmed in this city that Billy lives in. So
Right.
they are
Okay.
using Canadian for essentially it's cheaper, right? And you can still replicate some of the towns and it's not as expensive as like California and shit.
You guys are kind of just like a better United States, really, aren't you?
We used to be until Trudeau took over.
Oh, that cool guy. Yeah, I think I heard about him.
Oh my god.
Another thing I love as well is I feel like all these like 90s and even early 2000 like slasher horror movies always had like a really kick-ass memorable opening scene.
Yeah, I agree. And they're all kind of like this does remind me of like which I want to revisit too for commentaries is also I think a trilogy commentary we should do is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Because
Another
I
favorite
haven't
one.
revisit those in so long and they remind me the same kind of feel as this movie.
Oh,
Like that
100%.
90s horror film.
That's another one that I have like 5 million different copies of.
That's so funny. So if her gas is running out, so make sure everyone that's listening you're on the right point. Her gas is starting to go way down for some reason.
Yeah, somehow, or whatever truck she's driving there is like, whether she has like some sort of a leak or something like that, but like it's
Yeah.
just going down incredibly faster.
But maybe he punctures the gas.
That's a good point. I never thought about that before.
No, me neither. Watching it now, I'm like, that could have been the case.
And also, I love how the bad weather just takes over instantly. It's like, oh yeah.
Instantly. I love how she's listening to Turn Around.
I always love these settings, though. I have to say, I love when they use fucking rain towers and lightning and thunder and stuff.
That's what they're using, you think, for this? Like, I guess you'd have to, and like, because you can't, like, okay, it's raining this day, let's film. You'd have to set something up.
Yeah, I heard, I think the first person I heard talk about that was Rob Zombie. They have these like huge towers that they install, and it's like a giant sprinkler.
Is that why does he look so familiar?
Because that is Charles Lee Ray.
I was
Chucky.
gonna say, is that Chucky?
It surely is.
That's Brad. What's his name?
Yep, that's him. I never know how to pronounce his surname.
Rudolph, whatever. Anton knows how to pronounce it. That's funny. He's in
Yeah,
a lot of random stuff too.
yeah, weird because like he plays Chucky, which is a huge slasher icon, and then
Yeah.
Professor Wexler is played by Robert England, who is obviously Freddy Krueger.
They obviously did this on purpose, though.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And then Danielle Harris is in this as well.
Is she actually?
Yeah,
Wow. I
yep.
forgot about that.
And then you have Jared Leto, and there's like a load of like different people from back then that you look at and go, "Oh yeah, remember that guy? He was in like every movie ever."
Jared Leto is a strange character.
A very, very bizarre dude.
I for the longest time didn't know he could sing or anything like that, and I was like, weird. You're also a musician, not a magician.
I also never knew because I first came across. Well, actually, no, sorry. I seen him in movies, but I never knew that he was. I love 30 Seconds to Mars,
Yeah,
but I never realized. I was like, he looks awfully like that dude from those movies. I was like, that's weird.
that's what Chelsea like. It came up when we were like tripping the one day or something or drinking, and and then I was like, the song came up because I was listening to like I don't know, like emo hits or some bullshit or like alternative rock, and that I was like, is that Jared Leto? And she's like, yeah, you know he's in 30 Seconds to Mars. I was like, I never listened to this band. I kind of remember the song, but I was like, and she's like, yeah, it's Jared Leto. I was like, weird. Never knew that.
Not a bad singer. An awful actor, but
No,
not a bad singer.
I saw him do a cover of some sort of famous song, like some Adele song or something like that, and I was like, weird. I was like, he can actually carry a note better than I thought he could. I'll have to show you this sometime off air. But the other night I found some trippy ass Icelandic music, and it is fucking so good, dude.
Anything Icelandic always tends to be really good.
It's trippy, like this. You ever? I think it's called Aurora, and it's very interesting music because the chick that sings has a very interesting voice and personality. Very strange, but very good. This
So
scene where he's like, you think that if no one's ever seen this, just wait, because
yeah, this always
you
used to
think
make
he's
me
the
just be like,
psychopath.
wow, that was really well done. Uh, Also strange, something I noticed for the first time. She's basically in a mechanic shop and she picks up a telephone of all things to break the glass.
Yeah, there's probably wrenches everywhere. I always like that when he's like, and he's like, it's a guy that stutters, so he can't really tell her, and he screams. And this song's still playing. She has it on repeat on her CD player.
I always found this kind of freaky. You see, like the hood.
Why would she be like, you're freaked out? I'd be like, and the way I don't know that axe hits, like I don't know if she would necessarily die. You might just like fucking hit her skull pretty hard because it does. It does take a lot to like cut somebody's head off or actually like murder someone with a an object usually.
The name that came up on the screen there, written by Silvio Horta, I think is how it's pronounced. He actually died in 2020.
Because of
Suicide.
what really?
Yeah, I don't actually know the full story of that whole thing, but yeah, he committed suicide.
That's crazy.
Yeah, wild.
And I don't know how I was saying, I'm like, it's not because I've experienced killing people. I've just done a lot of research into serial killers. Would you would you fuck Tara Reid?
Yeah, but have you seen her recently?
Oh yeah, she looks fucking bad.
Dude, it's fucking scary looking. It looks
What
like
happens to these people?
I don't know if she created a TikTok account or something recently and she posted a video of her by a window, right? And I swear to God, it's like a fucking hostage video. And everyone in the comments is like, Tara, are you okay? What's going on? Like, everyone's like, this is like the fucking Stan Lee slash like Britney Spears, like somebody's after taking her over. Remember, like
Yeah, like
when Stan
MK.
Lee's
I believe some of
mother,
these people have MK Ultra. Like I think it's possible. Being brainwashed by the Hollywood elites.
there's that dude, Mike
Yeah,
Michael fucking Rosenbaum, or whatever the fuck his name is,
that kid, that guy,
the guy on the lying down.
couch.
Yeah, yeah. So that dude, that um, that dude that wrote this movie,
Hmm.
he also wrote do you remember that TV show Ugly Betty?
Yeah, kind of. I never watched it, but I
Yeah,
remember hearing about it.
he wrote all 85 episodes of that as well. Um, I'm not saying that it's in any way connected, but he was found dead in a Miami hotel room on January 7th, 2020. Variety reported he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
That's fucked. I, I know people can commit suicide, but there's a lot of like maybe not him, but very famous celebrities that end up dying by accident or suicide, and I don't necessarily think that that's actually what it is.
Do you know
And
what's
that will be coming for a another episode for sure.
Do you know what's really fucked up as well? Now that we live in a world where I think we don't, it's just like a passing remark, but the amount of, I suppose, people with either a huge online presence or a celebrity or whatever. I seen
Mhm.
Andrew Tate is like one of the recent ones I could point out, where they have to say things like, "I would never kill myself."
Yeah.
It's like that is
Um.
fucked up that you have to even say that.
No, for sure. And there's a lot of people, even like what's that guy, McAfee or whatever,
John McAfee, yeah.
McAfee. Yeah, how he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna kill myself. Oh, I died in prison by killing myself. That's not.
Like Gordo done an episode with him a while before that happened. Like, and even on the
With
show,
him
yeah,
on the show.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And he was like, he had him like on Zoom or whatever, some weird thing, and he was like, yeah, I'm in some like impenetrable like bunker. I can contact outside, but nowhere can like intercept our
That guy
IPs
was
and all this
smart and he
shit.
knew what he was
Yeah,
doing,
he looked like
and he
he
was
was in
rich.
this like weird little fucking. It looked like the inside of a spaceship or something. And
That's fucking
he was
weird.
like, "Yeah, the walls are made of lead and all this shit." Now I don't know if he was just talking shit or whatever, but he was like on that, and he's kind of like laughing, like this really weird, like kind of fake laughing. He was like, "I would never kill myself, and if I ever do suicide myself, it wasn't me." I was like, "Hmm,
That's crazy. And I feel like, yeah, and that's I think an episode for another day, but there is a lot of strange things to do with all these celebrity deaths and people who are getting targeted. And, we can convict certain people for doing certain things or broadcast, like I said, like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, but Ghislaine Maxwell's list is not even being looked at twice. So
which is just so fucked." Is this where they do the Bloody Mary thing?
I think so. Yeah.
Also, the outfit for the killer, um, the
Is
that
interesting.
yeah, the reason they chose that outfit originally because the entire script was written to be filmed like during like winter months, so they wanted it to be like a snowy setting. And then with the way
Oh,
production went and with financing, it ended up being way too warm at whatever time of year. So they were like, okay, we're gonna have to scrap all of that stuff. And then they were like, let's just leave the killer in like a winter coat thing.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's like, yeah, I was always wondering why it was like a big winter coat with a hood, and that's about it.
that's the only explanation. I don't think they ever like actually explained it any further than that.
A lot of these actors
They look like
are
what's
don't
this
act
fucking dude?
anymore. Yeah, like
Uh,
him, and then even that chick, what's her name with the curly hair.
Something gay heart, is it? No.
Yeah, a lot of them like were in a bunch of different like horror movies and like drama movies during like the like you could say late 90s, and they
Yeah.
they acted a lot and then they kind of just disappeared, and who knows if like they just couldn't get roles anymore, or they got addicted to drugs, or they were just like, I need to get out of Hollywood. There's a lot of that shit too.
That dude who was lying down on the couch earlier, that Michael Rosenbaum or whatever, he
Yeah.
actually has a really good podcast at the minute called Inside the Mind, I think, where he
Yeah.
interviews all different people from Hollywood, but it's a bit more it's not like your usual because he's not really like connected to Hollywood.
Yeah, he's done a
So
lot of stuff though too.
yeah, so a lot of the people he has on, like you get the more, I suppose, raw version of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, remember this chick or dude?
Yeah, I feel like when I was a kid I was like, oh, I like this room. Very spooky gothy.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I wish she was my girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny cuz a lot of guys like that psycho, especially if you're into like horror and stuff like that too. But realistically, you wouldn't want to marry that person. So
Mm.
that's the type of person that, like, if they caught you doing anything, that your balls would be in a bag, and you'd wake up and be like, "What?
That's
Where's
why
my
all
balls?"
those true crime YouTube channels now are so popular because there is so many people out there who are like that.
Yeah, 100%.
So this university in the movie is called Pendleton University, and the university's motto in the film is, I'm gonna fucking butcher this, uh, amicum optimum factum, right?
Yeah,
Which in Latin translates to the best friend did it.
weird, huh? And I think we'll come to that later, but that's fucking weird. And how'd you find that out? Is that just like on the front of the thing?
I had seen it somewhere, and I think I listened to the commentary the other day, and they basically confirmed it. They were like, "Yeah, there's all these little Easter eggs that are in the movie that like nobody ever really put any notice on."
Oh, kind of cool. And I don't know if I was just like overthinking it, but the one janitor that she almost knocks into a couple minutes ago, that guy looks familiar.
Yeah, fuck, I looked this up the other day.
I love Robert Englund, and I still think, I said it before and I'll say it again, I still think he could play Freddy
Yeah,
Krueger.
yeah, easily.
He doesn't need to be spry and young because they can use stuntmen and stuff like that. All he needs to do is get the voice and then have his close up shots,
Yeah,
and they can make a really good Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
I
Hmm.
just don't understand why they can't or don't. This movie, actually, I didn't realize this was made on a $14 million budget, and it made like 75 million at the box office.
That's fairly good.
Yeah, like especially in like the late 90s, I'd imagine 75 million is quite good.
No, yeah, and the fact that 14 is like, I would guess maybe like, 5 to 10 million.
I
You
think
know what I
that's
mean?
including all the marketing and all the everything.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That would make sense. Hmm.
So you said you felt like that janitor dude was familiar looking.
Yeah,
He's an actor called Julian Richings. He's an English actor. And I feel like he's been in a shit ton of stuff. Okay, so he's been in the Umbrella Academy. Let's see, what
makes
else
sense.
would we
I've
know
definitely
him
just
from?
seen him in like a couple things.
Let's see,
Huh.
what else was he?
Me and Billy talked about this on like the second Urban Legends, where you can find it. It's called like Urban Legends, Killer Clowns and Skin Shoes. And we talked about the Pop Rocks thing.
Yeah, like so. I suppose for
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of people who don't know, and like they're obviously talking about this right now, but that whole story refers to little Mikey, who was in those cereal commercials.
it's like a real legend.
Yeah, the dude's name is John Gilchrist, I think. So I was looking into this. So apparently, like this was all. It was a couple of different things mixed together. I didn't realize, but the general public at the time were like really skeptical of pop rocks in the lead up to that urban legend starting.
Weird.
Um, the fact that he never appeared on TV ever again, and then General Mills, who were the ones who obviously made the candy, were bought by another company in 1983, and they didn't market pop rocks anymore. They didn't see it as like a viable thing, and that's
Weird.
what led people to believe that was like gospel. Apparently, that dude's parents, like people were coming up to them being like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and all, I can't believe it. They're like, what are you talking about?"
That's fucked. No, he's still alive.
Yeah. And I think he's actually got a really high ranking job in some company as well.
It's funny because like, oh, this fucking scene where he's like, I remember first seeing this and I was like, oh, he's gonna die. They're gonna bring it in right at the beginning. But I was talking about this even in Chelsea, how like when Jason Mewes, for everybody from Jay and Silent Bob and Clerks and all these movies, he was a really big into drugs, and he was like doing heroin and stuff like that. He disappeared for a couple days. It's like a story Kevin Smith tells, and then he's like he gets a call, and his wife is like, I think it happened. Jason's finally dead. He finally like overdosed, and they don't know where he is. And then so TMZ and all these places are like, because he gets a call saying like, do you want to comment on the death of your friend? And Kevin Smith's like, what do you mean? And then he's like, oh, it finally happened. He's like dead. And then like I don't know if it's like an hour or two later or something, he gets a call and it's like Jason, and he's like hello. He's like, hello. He's like, why does everyone think I'm fucking dead? I'm alive, man. And like he had to call Kevin Smith because that's how fast like word spreads about stuff like that, where people just assume. You know what I mean?
And it would make you think that they nearly want those things to happen.
Yeah, for good stories and
Yeah,
stuff like that. It's
yeah,
it's all about shock value. And look at our news media. I used to work in a bar, and I used to hate watching. They'd always have like the news up on
yeah.
the one TV when you sit in the bar, and it's all negative, and it's like a lot of it's propaganda. And I'm like, why? I was like, nothing is ever a good story. It's always like this person died, this person got shot, there's a school shooting, this that, and it's like never anything positive because they want to perpetuate fear.
That that janitor he played Death in Supernatural for 5 years. He was the governor in The Witch. He was
Oh.
in Man of Steel. Let's
I've
see.
definitely seen him in a bunch of just random things. I think as
Yeah,
like background, more or less
yeah,
characters.
he has like over 200 and something
That's
credits.
crazy. I know I see people like I told you, I'm always that guy that's like, that guy's from this and this
Mm.
and this that I can remember. I was just so stupid. Have you ever seen The Crow? What's it called? It's like number 3 or something. It's with Edward Furlong in it, and Tara
Uh,
Reid is in it, and Angel from Buffy is in it. I actually liked that movie a lot when I was a kid, and it always reminds me of a movie that Tara Reid was in as she was starting to progressively get she was hot, but then it was like getting down that thing of like you look like a drug addict.
why does that sound really familiar to me?
Just look up The Crow, Edward Furlong. I can't remember what it's called. The Wicked Prayer.
I have never heard of that ever.
It's you should give it a try. I actually liked it when I first watched it as a kid, and I used to love this movie. And I've watched it like in the past maybe couple years, and I don't know if it necessarily holds up, but it still holds merit of being like a decent Crow film because it was supposed to be in Mexico with the Day of the Dead. And I Edward Furlong, as stupid as it is, used to be my favorite actor when I was a kid
Same.
because of that movie and because of like Terminator 2 and shit. And
Terminator 2, I really like. I was like, I am fucking. What was his character's name again?
I can't. No, it's not. I was like, is it Michael? No, that's not
Wasn't
it.
John Connor, was it?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. John Connor. I can't do
Yeah,
fucking.
I fucking love it so much.
Oh, there she is. I didn't realize that she played the
Mm.
goth chick. Yeah, she is in a lot of like horror movies, like just like kind of put in there.
Um, yeah, I was saying this was filmed in Toronto, and a lot of people, I think, at the time when this came out, they were like, "Yeah, you just ripped off Scream. It's basically just Scream," which I don't really think. I don't get the same vibe, really, to be honest.
No, neither do I. To me, and they show a lot of different urban legends, and like it has nothing to do, but it's all of these movies, like I said, were kind of the same feel of like I know what you did last summer, like either high school or college kids getting murdered, and
Yeah.
there's always like a setup.
Um, I see. Actually, it was announced in 2020. I don't know what the status of it is right now, but that they're rebooting um, Urban Legend, and it's being written and directed by the guy who wrote and directed the Grave Encounters movies.
I'm gonna say I've never seen those. Are they any good?
Uh, I was never really that pushed on them, but like when you look online, like the general response is actually quite favorable considering what they are.
That's kind of cool. I don't know. I have to check out like things like sometimes like I always go to my go tos or I like looking up like slasher films from the 80s that I've maybe never necessarily seen. Um
I hadn't seen for a long time. I never saw it, and I always heard people talk about it, and I was like, nah, whatever. I don't really. It's just not like it's not that level of slasher for me, or I haven't heard enough about it. Was the Burning?
Never heard of that either. So
Have you
strange. And
not?
people are like, "This kid's a horror fan." It's like, no, I didn't search for a lot of like I. There's certain movies that I see on VHS film, at a store, and I would just pick them out. That I didn't. I just like grabbed. It's called The Burning.
Yeah, and I think the guy in it, the like villain, is called Cropsy as well. Funny enough,
I don't know. Maybe we should revisit some of these films. Like I would love
I don't know if we
seeing,
can
like watching stuff.
make that out there.
Oh, they stole my idea. That was my idea.
Uh,
When I was a kid, I took a mask. You know how I used to want to be a director, and I wanted to make a killer with um, shears. That's would be his weapon.
so
Kind of
if
looks familiar.
yeah, if we were going to revisit like some of those older like 80s slasher movies, no,
I would love to. Yeah.
that one is fucking amazing. So
All
good.
right. Well, let's
I
do that
remember
sometime soon.
when I seen that, I was like, wow, I'm actually like I thought I had seen all those kind of movies, so I never had any
Yeah.
desire to watch that. And then I watched it, and I was like, wow, the the score is amazing. The characters, look, you know what you're getting, like. But I was actually surprised they managed to pull off something, around the time of Friday the 13th and
Well,
Nightmare on Elm
that's why
Street.
we're gonna, and it's on our Patreon now too. Is like me and Anton did the commentary for Sleepaway Camp, which is something that I always kind of heard of and always saw the art as a kid, and then never watched till like last year or like maybe the year before. And I liked it a lot. I was like, cool, this is like a slasher film that I've never really seen.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the ending. It was to me a fairly big twist, a strange twist, you could say for sure. But there's all these movies, and it's interesting that I think that people will enjoy more or less maybe having a different style of commentary of someone like me who has maybe never seen some of these more obscure um, horror movies that the general public may have not watched. Like I watched Basket Case for the first time not too long ago. Anton's like, just watch it, and I'm like, it's so fucked. Like that movie is fucked up, and like it's so low budget, but for what it is, it's fucking weird. I don't even know if I want to say good, and people might shit on me for that. But Basket Case is a fucking weird movie,
Yeah, it
man.
is. It is. Um,
But I think this stuff will be interesting to get into. Like I'm generally excited to like just watch some shit that I've never seen and like really get a grasp on like, hey, like where's this movie going for?
I don't know if we talked about uh the first urban legend you had heard of, did we?
It was kind of like Candyman, but I would say, oh shit, is this real? Does he actually get got right now? Oh, he's gonna get fucking murked. I think it was more or less Candyman, but like I remember, he's gonna get into it, but I remember did hearing about like the stuff about like the dog in the microwave, and like I remember hearing about the Pop Rocks too, like fairly young, and it was that show. But one of the most prominent ones I would say is the hook on the door handle at Love Lane or whatever,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
people go to make out and then they hear a scratch on the door. That one is almost to me as popular as Bloody Mary of that story.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah, they bring it
wild
in right away.
that those things are so universal.
Yeah. I feel like how have you not heard about this kind of stuff? And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
as much as I don't want to turn my kid into a serial killer, I do want to show my kids like scary movies when they're young, and then just like that can fuck up their psyche. And I was like, have you heard of Horror Stevie? I was like, you know who Horror Stevie is? She's like, I don't know who the fuck Horror Stevie is. And I was like, he's a kid that's like super into horror and he's got like tons of followers on Instagram. And I was like, he promotes like horror memorabilia and stuff like that. And he was like, they don't show his face because he's a kid that he just wears a mask. But I was like, Horror Stevie seems okay. And then she's like, well, do you know him? Do you know the Horror Stevie's mental health capacity?
I think you see, for me, I don't know if I buy that whole like, oh, if people see horror movies, they're going to be like a serial killer or whatever. I don't think I
Yeah.
buy that. I think it all depends on the parent and on the context. Like I feel like both
Yeah.
of us would have seen horror movies from quite an early age, and like we might have been fuck ups for many years, but
I'm fine now. I didn't kill anybody.
yeah,
This scene is fucked actually. How like she feels like she thinks that someone's on the roof, but it's more or less his feet dangling. Then the killer comes out, and then the fact that the killer has it hooked up to the tree is fucked. Because like she essentially aided in his murder to some extent.
which is I feel like a really inventive kill.
It is. That is a super inventive kill, and it's like an urban legend thing where you like hear something, so you're like, "Oh, I need to get out of here," and then you end up causing the death of someone because you essentially overreacted, you could say. But she was still being chased by a hooded killer. This chick was also in a lot of shit too. Isn't that what movie she's watching? That's like that's Patty. What's her or Pam? Patty, something like that. The actress.
I don't know how sold I am though on that. I'm not sure what that actress's name is. That main
Yeah.
chick. Uh, don't know. I was never really that sold on her. So I was like, oh, she's just an annoying fucking bitch.
I tend to agree. Is that I don't know. I didn't as the main lead. Like I'm. This movie is memorable for. I think the whole movie is like just one of those '90s. Like I'm saying, like I know what you did last summer. Like it's like a Scream. It is familiar, you could say, of those type of that type of genre because it is that genre. But her, part of me thinks they could have picked somebody a less annoying. If that's, I
Yeah,
feel bad for saying that, but I shouldn't.
and I feel like they were trying to go for like maybe a little bit of like the goody two shoes kind of like the chick from Scream.
Oh, Sydney,
Yeah,
or
like
no, Cindy.
the
No,
way
wait, no, Sydney. Sydney. Why
yeah
not? I was like, I love that movie. It
the
was
way
like
they
scary.
try
I mixed
and
up with a scary movie.
like portray her as like this virgin kind of
Very innocent. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You set up for some PG-13. That's just like, as much as I think it's overdone, I would love to either do a commentary or just more or less talk about the Scream movies as a whole. Because one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the first like VHS movies I had that was a horror movie was Scream. And I absolutely love the entire movie, and the ending especially is probably one of my favorite ending scenes of a horror movie.
I'm gonna say something really controversial.
Yeah, I'm sure
Um,
you will.
that original trilogy, I absolutely love all of those movies.
Me too. Even the third one.
Yeah, I love that movie with the whole what's the fucking with Cotton Weary and all at the start.
Yeah, and the stab movies.
Yeah, I love
And like
all
the
that.
beginning of that opening scene is also fairly good.
I have a
Of
giant
like,
stab movie poster framed on the other wall.
oh, that's sick. I actually think
It's
that's
a
fairly
green
cool.
one. Yeah, that was like one of the
Yeah,
first like horror movie things I remember buying when I started to work and I got like the first paycheck. I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna spend like over €100 getting this thing framed, and I got a really nice frame, and it cost me like I think like 150 to get the thing fucking
that's
framed.
cool. I would actually like having like that iconic. It's the same thing of you having your Dangertainment shirt. It's kind of like it's a movie with inside a movie or a thing with inside the movie that you can purchase. And I would I'm kind of running out of space in this room. I put up like my Paul fucking picture up there of him like smoking a joint and like I'm covering my walls, but I'm like essentially running in a room. But I have some on the other side, but no one will be able to see it. But I would love like a Scream poster. like just or even just collecting them and having them rolled up somewhere. Like I could switch them out and shit like that because I love having movie posters.
I have um I have an original 1999 Blair Witch Project quad poster they were called. So in the UK, the movie posters were done differently. They were done in a weird landscape dimension, but they weren't the same as everywhere else worldwide. They were like a tiny bit bigger, so they were specific to the UK. Um, I actually managed to buy one from a guy who collects movie posters, so it's an original one from 1999. I sent it to Eduardo Sanchez's house in in where does he live? Maryland or wherever it is.
Mexico.
And I had him sign it and then send it back to me. So I've got it there in the tube, and like it's probably one of my prized possessions that I want to have framed. But the frames for those are because it has to be a custom frame.
Yeah,
They're so fucking expensive. Like it cost me like €300 to get that thing framed.
that's crazy. But have you? Don't you guys have IKEA?
Yeah,
IKEA
we
has
do.
tons of
Yeah,
frames.
but they don't have because
Oh,
they don't
weird.
use those quad posters anymore because it's a tiny.
Yeah.
It's like it's a really weird dimension for a poster because it's a landscape
Well,
poster.
yeah, and that's what I was like trying to do is get some different style stuff, but because of the way posters are always like okay, I don't know, vertical where they're like not
Yeah,
landscape, they're like
yeah.
portrait style. It's just like it that would fill up better, especially up top of my Stranger Podcast flag and stuff like that, where a lot of the and I've looked for some really cool art and horror art, but it's always portrait. It's not landscape at all.
Which is
Unless
really
you get like the dumb posters where it's like a cartoon version of like Freddy and Pinhead and Michael Myers, and it's like one of those like goofy fucking pictures.
which is actually really annoying because unless you've got like a giant fucking movie room or something, those
Yeah,
those portrait style ones don't really work.
no, yeah, because I a dream come true. I'm sure for all horror fans and cinema fans out there like that. It would be so awesome if I made enough money and rich enough to have like even in the backyard in a garage or shed some sort of like movie theater where you had like say like even 3 rows of seats and then lighting down the
Yeah.
with the carpet and the
Yep.
posters all going down would be fucking awesome.
That's like something some dudes my age probably fascinated about like fucking porn
Yeah.
stars or something. No,
Yeah.
I fascinate about shit like that.
Whoops.
Is this
There goes my
movie that
lighting
bad
change. What?
that you have to smoke?
I always do though. It's the weekend because I guess my fucking whole thing fell
I
down.
see.
Oh, whatever. It's ruined now.
Oh well.
I'll set up my fucking light different there.
What you into? Lithium. My type of guy.
That's what it said.
Yeah. Remember when that was the thing? Fucking
Have you ever tried that?
no.
I don't need either. I knew this dirtbag kid, and we were hanging out at my house once, and he was like searching through all my mom's like pills and stuff like that. And he was like, "You got any lithium?" And he was a dude that was really into Nirvana. And he was just like searching through my like cupboard of like my mom's like pills or whatever she was taking at the time. I think just like health stuff. That's mostly what it was. But he was like just searching for anything that could get him high. And I'm like, I don't really need this. Like we're already smoking weed. I'm fine with what we're doing.
I'm not gonna lie. Uh Danielle Harris's character there and the way she's so like openly easy, I'm like
Her outfit is
that works for me.
I feel like they're like I don't know, you don't see that nowadays of like unless you go um some sort of horror event or something like that. Like I noticed it too. You don't see a lot of like emo kids anymore, goth kids. It's rare. Like they're out there. But like even like women how they used to wear the corsets and stuff like that. You don't see like goth kids as much as you used to, like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, you're right. And like I was at a haunt attraction a weekend called the Nightmare Realm, and that's probably the first time in a long, long time where like I had seen kind of emo and goth chicks, and like they were
Yeah.
dressed in like the fishnets, and like some of them are, and like I made a post on Instagram, and I think the Nightmare Realm were using it for like their PR stuff. They got a quote from me, I think, that they wanted to use for like all their marketing and shit. And like
That's
since then,
cool.
I've had like shit tons of people messaging me on Instagram and stuff as if I own the thing, being like, "Is it open
Oh,
on
that's
Wednesday?
fun.
Can I bring my young sister and all this stuff?" And like all of them are those like big fat titted like fishnet wearing like goth chicks, and I'm like,
Oh,
where
that's
are all you
so funny.
motherfuckers? I was like, where have you all you people been? Now I'm like 50 and homeless. It's like, where were you like 10 years ago?
That's so fucking funny. And it's funny they came out of the woodwork to ask you because they think that it's your thing.
It's like that's not my thing. Do you think I'd
That's
be
fucking
sitting in a
so
little
funny.
tiny attic conversion like fucking Dobby if I own that shit?
Like Dobby. No, that's fucking true. I don't know. I think things have changed, and like there was like my generation, which you're around the same age, but it was like such a big thing, like a huge thing to be like cut off gloves. Everyone had some sort of style of emo hair. Like I had the black with a little bit of pink in it, with the back cut short, so it spiked up. And then my buddy had like the long AFI hair, and then like everyone had like a different style emo haircut because we're all doing our own thing, but everyone was trying to one up each other.
Yeah, I remember like having all that shit, and then I remember the first time someone introduced me to it was like Avenged Sevenfold or something. I was like, oh my god, that's I want to be them and all. That's what is wrong with me.
Never got into that band ever. Actually, I knew buddies that were super into it, but I never got into Avenged Sevenfold. I was like a Hawthorne Heights, Silverstein, and Atreyu type of guy. That's such a classic '90s scene, though. What they just showed of like her pulling back the blanket and then like the lights flashing,
Yeah.
like what dun dun dead body.
Also, Jared Leto's character in this movie is kind of like in a really annoying, like shit eating. He's like the school fucking journalist or
Douchebag.
whatever,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's just like, but it's kind of cringy because it's like you're supposed to be in like fucking university or whatever, and do you have to take it that serious? Like you're writing for a school paper. Relax.
Oh yeah, he's supposed to be like, yeah, I know what you mean. He's trying to be like the investigator type of thing, like
Yeah,
and
it's just kind of
figure out.
cringy. Like it's like you're writing for a fucking a school paper that like 10 people probably read. So stop acting like you're fucking Jessica Fletcher.
Cringy ass bitch.
That's probably one of my favorite sound bites.
I had to make it up, and I just used a computer voice because I was like, "How can I add this into the show?" And that was after somebody. We've had a lot of good reviews, but we've had some bad ones. And some guys like, "This is the cringiest podcast I've ever listened to," and I was like, "Why do you listen to it then? Why wouldn't you just turn it off and not have to put your 2 cents in because you don't like it?" Because
Right? That always fascinates me that somebody else somewhere on the planet discovered your content, and so much so that they'll actually sit down and either listen to an entire episode or maybe clips from multiple episodes, enough
yeah.
to aggregate an opinion on it, and then go, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to give him this opinion. And I'm going to be like, oh, this is so cringy. It's like, okay.
It is funny, even like how there was one person that they were like, the host is an ableist piece of trash. And I'm like, I don't know they could listen to one episode that we did at the very beginning where I said something that was kind of just in a bad joke or something like that maybe I shouldn't have said, and they judge me based on that one thing alone. And then it's like, I'm going to take the time to leave a review. And we've said this before. It's like, when people go to a restaurant, right? The people that actually enjoy the food will keep coming back to that restaurant, and most times they don't need to leave a review unless they're like really being nice. You'll just go back and give them business because you like it. The
Yep.
people that get bad food and don't like it, they instantly go to Yelp or some sort of review thing, and they're like, that was the worst pasta I've ever had. Burnt garlic bread, server was a bitch. Like, and they'll like just go off
They'll
about their
make a
whole like a
point to
terrible
do it. Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fucked up.
Yeah, because the people that understand the content that we're going for and where we're coming from, is they'll enjoy it genuinely because it's just a stoner drinking, you know, kind of just pondering about life and the strangeness of life and the macabre sides of things. And it's a perspective based thing if you're going to enjoy that or not. You know what I mean? Because so many people are different. It's just like if you don't enjoy something, don't watch it, don't listen to it.
I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it or listened to it at this point, I done an episode with Gordo from those conspiracy guys, and I actually know him outside
Yeah.
of the whole podcast thing. He grew up in the town where I'm from. Um, and I remember him telling me, he was like, just be prepared for when this releases that there will be probably some blowback on you. And I was like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. Dude, I swear to God, right? Within the first couple of days I didn't hear anything and I was like, okay, the reception's quite good. It's getting a lot of traction. This is fine. And then, like, after maybe a week or two of it being online, all of a sudden I was getting all these messages on Instagram. I think I was telling somebody I got like between 60 and 70 DMs on Instagram being like, piece of shit. Not everybody that likes has those fetishes about like blood play and knife play and all ends up being a fucking psychotic this and that. No, I was like, no, I didn't say that. I made some like passing remark about like it freaks me out sometimes when like you've got these weird like fet life websites where people want to be
I
fucking
remember hearing you say that. Yeah.
yeah, and people like want to be hogtied and like fucking stabbed with needles and shit and like putting fucking sewing pins through their nipples and stuff and I'm like that's the kind of fucking makes me wonder like what goes on in your mind.
Yeah, and like people can have that and understand. You have to understand that normal, not no, you can say normal because nobody's actually normal, but like people that just live everyday life and are kind of um, even in keel, or that's the expression. Like how essentially that once you see it from the outside and stuff like that, yeah, it's kind of strange. Like we knew this emo kid, and he like told I don't know if it was at a shock value when we were teenagers that he liked the blood play stuff, and we were like, what the fuck? And we're like, stay away from this kid and not saying it as people can do what they want. And Anton's even expressed that he's done like
Yeah,
crazy stuff like
yeah,
that. And I'm like, and he admits it and is open to it essentially of saying it. And it's okay to have these things, but you understand that some people don't understand it. And what do people do when they don't understand things? They fear it. They're like, what the fuck is going on with this shit? What's going on in your head to make you like that?
yeah. And like I wasn't necessarily knocking it, I was just drawing the lines between sometimes people that have these like crazy fetishes and I don't even mean I don't even necessarily mean blood play or knife play, but like
Yeah.
there's some things we brought up on that episode of that podcast with Gordo, like where there's fetishes that take it to even like a bigger extreme where like chicks like to be like beaten to the point of like near unconsciousness and like being covered in bruises and caned and like but not just like even like to me I'm like looking at it, I'm like okay that's not just a bit of a fetish or a bit of fun, like you're literally getting beaten to like within an inch of your life.
No, and that's why it's like, where do you draw the line? Like the guy that there is a guy that had the fetish of eating somebody, and then there's people out there that had the fetish of being
Yeah,
eaten,
yeah,
or
that's fucked. Like,
and that act that happened in
yep,
like Austria or
yep.
Germany or something
No,
like
you're
that.
right.
There's a real that happened with that guy's name is something like some army something.
Yeah, no, you're
And
right.
it's the same thing where's the line drawn and when do we look at it and be like, okay, is this healthy for you? Like the guys that like the chicks with the high heels that step on their fucking balls and shit, like that's a real thing. And it's like, where does this come from in your head? You know what I mean? And I said to Anton on the spectrophilia, like the sex with ghosts episode that'll be coming out, or it probably might be out the time this one comes out, is I was like, most fetishes start when you're a kid. So I was like, be careful of jerking off on your stuffed animal or something like that. And Anton gave me this look. He's like, it's not always that way. And I was like, so I was like 60%. I was like, a lot are kind of based on something you had happen when you were a kid, and then you bring it into waking life as you grow up, and that's where they get dangerous.
Oh, I love they're doing that thing now that all these movies done where it was like, oh, I opened this closet and the killer's outfit is there, but it's not the killer's outfit. It's just a very similar thing, and also his murder weapon is there, kind of, but not really.
It I get that's why people would say that it's kind of resembles Scream, Like, and I understand where people are coming from when they would say that, because that's just like when he's holding like the gloves and the mask and they just caught
Yeah,
Billy.
yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, that whole thing where he like drops it and she looks at him and he's all like, Sid?
Yeah.
Come on, Sid.
It's just a cell phone, okay? Like, and then
It's
it's
just a
I
cell
like in
phone
scary.
and black gloves covered in blood and a ghost face mask and black boots.
That's why I like in the scary movie where he drops the cell phone, then the knife covered in blood, then the mask, and he was like, "It wasn't me, Sid."
That old dude as well reminds me of someone. He's probably in a shit ton of stuff as well.
Yeah, a lot of people in this are like, like a lot of the actors, even the cop. She's in a bunch of movies during
Yeah,
like the early
yeah.
'90s or late '90s. I guess more or less the late '90s. Everyone kind of is, and then they slowly fade out. They were in a bunch of these movies and even as side characters, and then all of a sudden they're just not in movies anymore. That bowl got me fairly high. It's like fucking 12 o'clock here. I was like, it's like the some pineapple shit. I'm always like, okay, this is a small enough bowl, and then it's just like, nope. You
What
don't
was
smoke often.
no up and down? You see over here as well. It's like fucked because we're like not allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
We're still living in like the Stone Age over here. So like you know something like w- I always find this really funny when anyone refers to smoking anymore as like drugs. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
god, oh god.
It's just like a plant. It's like,
Yeah, I'm just
oh,
like, please stop. Like when, because anytime I mention that here, like we still have, look, a lot of people here are of the mind we are, but there is also like the older generations that are still like,
I'm sure.
they're not like devout Catholics, but like they will go to church once a week, even though
You're
they don't.
smoking the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, like, but they don't even really understand why they're going to church. It's just like, oh, that was
Yeah.
just what we done. And like, there's still,
Repetition.
yeah, there's still like a lot of people that like that are like, oh God, no, I wouldn't smoke those drugs now. It's like, oh my
It's
God.
you're smoking the devil's reefer, and they like get like that. Like there's people still out there, but more or less it's came the idea even on like most people understand that uh this is something like most people understand that's not really bad for you because they see it so often now where so many people are doing it. It's like as normal in a lot of places as smoking a cigarette. And like cities like Toronto, you'll just smell it everywhere when you're
Yeah.
walking down the street and stuff like that. It's just as normal as smoking a cigarette. It's all legal. Everyone can do it as long as they're like outside and stuff like that and not in certain places. But it's become so normalized now, which, like I said, there's a conspiracy about keeping Canada docile. So that's why there's like a pot shop on every single corner, because just to keep us all sleepy.
I'm really surprised uh we haven't legalized it here, to be honest.
I know, and I'm surprised that every commentary we do, we never talk about the movie half the time. It's always something
I was
else.
literally just thinking about that. I was like, what have I got to say about this scene? I was like, let me see. Nothing really.
Yeah.
Again, right? If you were to
Such a
really
it's such a
break
I was gonna say, yeah.
I was
Okay.
just gonna say, if you really break down this scene, it's like the look. I know it's the classic horror movie thing, but it's like, okay, she's looking at the pool, and all of a sudden, some guy dressed in like full winter gear just happens to be strolling alongside the pool.
This is a there's definitely a scene just like this in many other movies. Oh, and then yeah, and then of course it's something that you think it's not.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
starting
I'm
to
just going for a swim, and I decided to wear full ski gear.
yeah, that's also weird because it's not supposed to be that warm out. The I want to say that I do enjoy this film, and I think I almost like Final Cut more if I can, if memory serves, because I might have watched that one first as a kid, so I got the first reaction out of that film. But like the costume to me is iconic, but
Yeah,
also extremely lacking.
yeah, because it isn't anything really other than a
No,
jacket, but
it's a winter coat.
at the same time, I always remember it being like, I was like, oh yeah, that's urban legend.
Yeah, because you would know that now associating with it, but like it is just like a very simple put on a coat with an axe. Like I like that, Jason and even Michael Myers a little more thought out, where that's so iconic because they're wearing something over their face, right?
Like even the artwork for that newest box set that I was showing you, I
That
just
is
feel like
cool.
it's so iconic, even though it's not really anything.
Yeah, no, it is. Just the and the the fucking fur on the hood, which
Yeah,
was such a big thing in like the early 2000s, late 90s. And the emo kids took it over, and all the emo kids had the fur on their hood.
for anybody watching the video version of this, there's like some art cards and stuff that come with that box set, and I think this is from, yeah, this is from Bloody Mary. Uh, I'm assuming that's supposed to be her.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, she
Have you
kind of.
seen the third one?
I have, but I can barely remember it. I just remember it being pretty
It being
trash.
bad? Oh, great.
There's quite an iconic shot of the killer, I feel like.
Yeah. I guess it is different. Like you associate with this movie and a horror movie. Um, it'll just never be as iconic as things like even this like ghost face mask.
Yeah.
Like, did they develop? Okay, I got a question because we'll eventually talk about Scream. Did they develop that? They developed that mask just for that movie, right? It wasn't like something beforehand, like on a shelf. Like how kind of they did that with the Shatner mask. Like they didn't find that, right? They developed that.
No, so from what I gather, that mask was made by a company called Fun World, I think.
Fun World, yeah.
And like they've up until this day they've had like issues with licensing and stuff because it's not a scream mask, it's a ghost face mask.
Yeah.
And Ghostface, while he is the character, they're like separate entities apparently. So like there's always this big issue every time they try to license costumes and masks and stuff, even to 2022.
That is weird because I feel like I've seen it. Maybe saw it beforehand or heard about that somewhere. I was just like curious. It's funny. So it, she's looking at the paper. Or he no, is it? He is, and he sees that it's the teacher, and he's like the sole survivor, right? So does that mean like he survived some sort of like killing?
Yeah, I could never really.
Because what is he trying to piece together? Like who did it? Yes, but like it's showing that Robert Englund's character like survived some sort of urban legend killing or something like that.
I I know this is gonna sound really bad, but I kind of hate like the like generic black funny.
Cop.
Yeah, it's like ugh.
I fuck it. I don't want to. I don't want to like agree almost, but I kind of do that. It's so often in movies they do that because they're just trying to put someone of ethnicity into a role, so they just pick a kind of a side one. But instead of actually making maybe someone of different ethnicity an actual like key part,
Yeah.
like a main character, they choose to just like, well, we have to, we have to do this because if we don't, people get mad. But I don't blame them at the same time because movies were so white for so long. Like if you think about like throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s even.
Yeah, so you were right. Professor Wexler is supposed to be the only survivor of that school massacre thing 25 years previous.
Oh, weird. That would and then now he's teaching about it,
Yeah.
maybe giving them, hints of like some stuff can get fucked up.
And I think that's why he focuses so much on the whole urban legend thing. This is a really weird way to try and kill somebody.
Oh, like cut their what the Achilles heel is that what it's called? Or no, it's not what it's called. Is it
Yeah,
like
but
your
what he tried like this whole thing. Where it's like
Is that scene in Austin Powers where he's like, "Wait!" oh, oh, that's fucked though. That would have to been timed perfectly
yeah, I
for the
know.
car to hit him on the road spikes.
Because had he not have crawled onto the spikes, then he would be alive. Because the car would just roll over him.
There's a part of me that wants to do commentaries for the Patreon on some comedy movies too, just for fun. Like I could watch Austin Powers and talk about that shit. It's just like, even though it's like probably been so overdone, I think it's fairly funny. Like some of these movies,
Do you know
because I've
what?
never done a commentary on anything comedy wise. It's always been like so far like horror. Even for like when we started the Patreon, doing some of the commentary on there.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to revisit some stuff that I remember being like really funny at the time, and I don't know if it would hold up now. But like things like Super Bad.
Superbad is still funny, man.
Yeah, like
I
I remember like laughing so hard at that movie.
Step Brothers is still funny. I think Pineapple Express is still funny. All these like things that like you can't do now because comedy's dying because everyone gets offended. That is the truth of the matter. It's
Yeah,
extremely true. But no, some of those movies like Super Bad has always been a good movie. So
that
Michael Cera is a weird dude. I knew someone that like saw him in Toronto and like said hi to him, and he was very like nice but super awkward and didn't really want to talk to anybody. And then according to a lot of people out there, I sound like Jonah Hill. So
yeah, I could see that.
I don't hear it, but it's I've heard three at least three or four people that are fans tell me that, and that don't know each other.
I am probably never going to be able to unhear that now.
Great. What does Jonah Hill say? I gotta start saying like his catchphrases.
I don't
I
know.
just drew dicks, man. I just didn't know how to stop. I just like had more veiny and triumphant or whatever he's saying when he's talking.
It's interesting point actually. That this party or whatever they're at. I
Yeah,
don't know what is it for.
isn't it?
Does it even tell you?
Is it just a college party?
Yeah, it could be, but
Oh, because is this when this is when shit starts hitting the fan, right?
yeah, because apparently they don't know, but it coincides directly with the 25th anniversary of that killing. That
Oh,
that
so they're like, let's
yesterday.
celebrate this. You start like okay, this is what the issue is when you start like, especially if you're getting stoned or just watching a movie from the outside as commentating, like talking about all sorts of different things, but also watching a movie and kind of analyzing it. And then you start to realize, and when you said like people do reference that this is kind of like Scream, it kind of is like the party scene, now that
Yeah,
they're
it sure
doing, and like
is. Yeah.
and then it all of a sudden pops off where people start getting murdered, and that's exactly what happened in Scream. Like literally. Oh, it's a Halloween party, is it not? That's what the whole thing is.
That main actress is such an annoying, like miserable character.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's what makes the movie is like it makes it like this memorable movie for a horror film, or it could it have been better with a better lead?
Why do they always make the janitors in these movies like some fucking freaky? But it's
And then
meant
there's
to
like
hit.
the nicest guy in the world's the janitor, and he was like, everyone thinks I'm scary. And it's just like he's like the nicest dude. He's like, because every horror movie has the janitor as some like lurking, creepy guy. In Nightmare on Elm Street, they have like a janitor character, and like she turns into like Freddy. Well, it's just like a person like washing the
Yeah.
floor. And then even in Scream, you have like the guy in the Freddy Krueger sweater.
Do you know who that is?
Is that Wes Craven in it? No. Is it actually?
Yep.
I was like, I knew it.
See, I could do without her character. I get what they're trying to
Yeah.
do, but
hmm
it's like, I mean, ugh,
I just think because it's been done so many times where it's just an excuse for them to add in a character of ethnicity when, like I said, they could actually have someone in a lead. We're watching the show called the dark side of the 90s, and it's like all about talking about shows and sitcoms and stuff like that, and they were talking about how like you like always the executives or the producers would say middle America wouldn't understand this, they're not ready for this, like, and this like celebrity that was on like 90210 or whatever did like a kiss with Carlton from um Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't. They in their trial run, she hugged him, and they didn't like that. She said, "You can't do that. Middle America can't deal with that." And then so she decided to kiss him, and like people clapped and everything like that. But she was trying to push um, the boundaries because they were telling her that Middle America couldn't handle it.
What's this? These are having like a. Oh, he's kind of like being like fucking Matthew Lillard in Scream.
Yeah, he kind of is in the way he's doing this
Yeah, he's like kind of being a little bit goofy and like unhinged.
and calling him out.
Oh. These kind of scenes make me cringe so fucking much.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. And he's like, he's like trying to call him out and be like a dick, and you're gonna write gardening books and shit like
And
that.
everyone's going like, "Woo, yeah, yeah."
There's always that kind of dickhead jock though. It's like they have the for a lot of these, like when they start to redo the slasher genre like in the late 90s early 2000s, they kind of all did the same kind of structure a lot of times. A high school, a college, killer runs around, have a big party, everyone dies. I always hate when you like look at an actor and you're like, oh, he's off of so many things, but what? And I'm just too lazy to look it up because you have the internet right at your disposal. Because he's in tons of stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, he's in a shit ton of stuff. He let's see what else he was in.
That's what I'm also looking up.
Yeah, sure, he played fucking Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Oh, weird.
Yeah,
I feel like
played him for 154 episodes.
oh yeah. This scene always like kind of freaked me out. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy too. Weird. Oh, that's fucking gross. I remembered that scene. I was like, holy shit, they did the fucking dog in the microwave because I feel like I heard that way before this movie.
Oh, yeah, doesn't he kill him with the fucking yeah the pop rocks? That he puts like Drano or some shit in his mouth.
That's fucked.
Again, there you go. Look, it always seems to be thunder and lightning every time someone dies.
Yeah, see all these like weird lighting techniques that they did. Just like it's such a, like a '90s feel now as you look back at it. And I hate how this ends up happening where you're like analyzing the film, and it is. I keep saying it's like screen because you notice the caller like, "Have you checked the microwave?" Like they do a lot of the similar things, like the killer calling the person.
Yeah, yeah, I can kind of see where people were coming from now, I guess.
But
He was
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's like the structure of like the '90s movies. I feel like the horror movies.
I always like this scene. This is the one where she's like in that like recording studio, I think, isn't it?
And she calls her right through the radio.
That would freak me out.
Oh,
The fact that she's like, ugh.
look, it's like the first podcast studio. Oh yeah, and she has the radio running. so like everyone can hear it.
She's dressed up as Tiffany, is she?
I think that's cool. Isn't that like where it's supposed to be? Like it looks like it from like yeah, that's definitely
Yeah,
from
has to be
Chucky.
right.
Well, yeah, she's got the black boots. Yeah, that's kind of cool actually. I didn't even notice that when I
Yeah,
first watched this.
I never noticed that before.
That's fucking funny. You wouldn't still be able to hear those like the screams from those microphones that far away.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, wait a second though, hasn't she left the room? Like, I'm pretty sure if I left this microphone on and went down the street,
Screaming.
you wouldn't be able to talk to me anymore.
No. Even if I screamed from downstairs with the mic on, you would just barely hear it.
What do you do? Smash your fingers off with that?
I don't like that either. Any finger scenes in movies?
I always hate the idea as well of somebody falling like that.
Because you could break your legs.
Yeah, like
Um,
the idea of like that feeling as you fall and then also like hitting the ground with your feet.
and you felt that pain when you jump from somewhere high. And you're like, oh fuck!
This
I
was
didn't
a
mean your
bad
feet
idea.
hurt. I would. There's a scene in a movie where like the guy's his like a bone shoot through his kneecaps. I'm trying to think of what movie that is, and that is a scary thought. That if you like are trying to escape from someone, you jump down, and your like leg bones just go through you because of the pressure. Essentially, your kneecaps would blow. Is how it probably. You know what I mean? Wouldn't
Yeah,
your kneecaps just blow and it'd shoot up?
terrible.
Oh,
The
that's so
idea of
fucked
looking
up.
down
It's a
at that.
thought. Yeah.
Very clever move here by whoever shot this. Now that they've got her titties essentially hanging out,
Yeah.
they keep focusing on them as well, which is interesting.
Well, sex sells, right? And the fact that this movie doesn't have any like nudity or anything, does it? And
And
isn't it rated
also,
R?
it has no on-screen kills, as far as I know.
Really?
Yeah, it cuts away every time.
This must have been 14A then. They must have sold us 14A so they could get more people to watch it.
Yeah, because I think the guy who directed it purposely said that he was like, I felt like this was my big break, and I wanted to be able to get it in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't really remember Final Cut, and I remember enjoying that one too. And I can't remember if I
Same.
watched that one first, maybe, and
Same. I
then
love that
I
one
think
too.
watched this one. Always these scenes of somebody in these like 90 movies of like somebody watching somebody else die.
Oh, and that's very reminiscent of I Know What You Did Last Summer, where she's like, "What are you waiting for? What are you waiting
What are
for?"
you waiting for? I can't help that. Like Billy's right that some of these movies like make you think of Scream, or I mean, Scary Movie.
Yeah,
When she's like, "What are you waiting for?" And the guy's like trying to commit suicide, jumping off, and he's like, "What am I waiting for?" And it's like fucking jumps.
I actually really want to rewatch some of them again. There's some.
We should know what we should do. We should get because Billy loves those movies. Let's get Billy to do a commentary with us on Scream or Scary Movie.
That'd be good.
I think that one or two, or just watch both of them. Have like a huge marathon.
They were and even the later ones. There's like they get worse, obviously, but there's some parts in some of the later ones that I
That
was
are
like,
so funny.
fucking hilarious. I remember going to see. What's the one with Dr. Phil in it at the start? And it's like Saw.
I think that's 3 or 4.
I remember going to see that at the movies, and like when he cuts off the wrong foot.
Wrong leg.
Yeah, I was like, oh motherfucker. And like I done so much laughing. I was like, that's ridiculous that they got Dr. fucking Phil.
We stole that kind of. We did a skit during the Strange Mysteries of Civil War episode, and I had like a fake foot, and we were talking about like Anton is the doctor, and we did a whole skit how he's a doctor, and he's like a kid though. He's like a 16-year-old kid that's a doctor because a lot of times in the Civil War that would happen. It would be like kids doing this type of things, and they've had like a couple days of training, and he's like, "What do you need cut off your arm?" He's like, "No, my fucking leg." And I was like, "I got a bullet in my leg." And then he cuts off my foot, and I was like, "I said right leg," and I was like, held up this like fake foot, and I was like, "Wrong foot."
I don't know why, because it probably didn't age well, but like I remember at the time when I saw that, I was like yelping. I was
It's
laughing
still
that
funny
hard.
because those like movies were iconic for the time because we didn't have anything else like that really. Like there were some like Mel Brooks movies and stuff like that, but nothing like, especially the first scary movie. It was fairly funny, like the entire thing. And then obviously you watch so many times it gets stupid and old. But
I remember watching Scary Movie 2 for the first time, and that was a similar experience. I think I didn't see it in the movies, but we got it like,
I saw it with friends at like a
yeah,
friend's house.
and like I think it was actually in my house, and like there was like me and some friends, and I think it was actually my granddad at the time, because that's who got me into horror, because he would watch like a lot of movies, and a lot of times like, I would be maybe basically begged to stay up late, and like
That's
he'd be like,
cool.
yeah, well, look, you know what, you can watch it, but if you start having nightmares or there's like problems going to bed or anything, he was like, that's it. I was like, yeah, cool. Now I used to shit my pants, like, but I remember, I remember we watched Scary Movie 2, and I remember like,
You watched that with your grandfather?
yeah, I know, right? And I don't know
That's
whether at the
fucking
time
funny.
that like made it funnier or something, but like he wasn't really getting it, and like I was like, I nearly needed like oxygen that I found it so funny, and
That's
he's just
so
kind of
funny.
sitting there in the other chair, being like, "What's so funny? This is
I think that's so funny.
terrible.
Watch that with your fucking granddad.
This is
Like,
fucking
man,
terrible movie."
I've said my grandfather like fucking hated the slasher films, but liked old school horror films. Like I said, Abbott Costello, like the original Dracula, like Bela Lugosi, stuff like that. Especially Vincent Price old films. Like I remember watching the which is actually a fucked movie that gave me nightmares. Is House on Haunted Hill, like the remake. But he's like, you have to see the original. It makes you think about it. Like you don't have this gore and stuff like that to sell you or something. Like he did not like the whole bloody stuff, and I was like, I
And
love it.
and originally, I fucking, that's another one of my like all time favorite movies to rewatch. I interviewed William Malone, who directed that remake, a couple of months back, and he was saying that that wasn't the original intention. Actually, that was another one of those movies that I feel like we've talked about time and time again, that the studio came back to him after the rough cut and were like, "Ooh, you're gonna have to put in more gore, more kills. You're gonna have to
That
make it a
movie
bit
is
more
gave me
cheesy."
nightmares.
Oh, same.
Like the beginning scene with the psycho fucking paths in the mental hospital stabbing people with pencils in the neck and shit. I was like, oh my fuck. And I watched it with that kid, Austin. I watched so many movies because we would just be like, his parents would kind of let us watch those movies when I'd be over. So that's like, we want to watch a scary movie. Like, and we just pick these like, and his dad was like, his dad looks like Bono. I don't know if I've said that before. And he did a U2 cover band where he did like, they dressed like it and he looks just like Bono. Like I'm telling you, like, no word of a lie. It is fucking strange. And he used to just think it's funny to watch all these like horror movies with us and didn't give a shit. And I was like, this is kind of awesome. I can just go to Austin's to watch all this scary shit.
Yeah, I remember being like really fucked up after watching that House on Haunted Hill.
So and then now they think that Jared Leto is the killer. Like that's because they keep assuming that it's him at this point.
Oh God, why does this feel like I Know What You Did Last Summer again?
I'm really getting the vibe that they kind of just like took the structure of like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and these movies that were because this came after that, right?
Yeah, but now I, if anybody knows, correct me if
And
I'm
there's the
wrong.
janitor again.
I think that this movie was written quite a few years before.
Really?
Yeah,
So they already had this structure and this idea down then.
to a degree, I think. Let me see. Let me.
And everyone's just assuming everyone is the killer at this point. This janitor's the killer. Oh, Jared Leto's the killer. Because she sees the coat in the back of the car.
Okay, so the concept for the film was developed by Silvio Horta, a recent film school graduate at New York University,
And a prostitute.
who was working. Who was working uh, at the perfume counter in a Nordstrom. He pitched the idea in '97 to Gina Matthews, a producer who was leading writers' workshops at the time. She liked the story, and the two began to further develop the concept. Let's see what else. They shopped the screenplay to numerous film studios, but none expressed interest in funding the project. In a last-ditch effort to get the film made, he brought the screenplay to Phoenix Pictures, a then-new company who had only produced a small number of films. An executive at Phoenix was impressed by the concept, but Horder recalled that his screenplay needed to be better and rewrites began to take place.
Needs to be better. So is it like so? When did Wes Craven develop Scream then? Because Scream came first, right? And then I know what you did last summer, and then this, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. And you know what's actually really interesting? The guy who ended up directing this. So, in seeking a director, executive producer scouted potential filmmakers from Australia and was impressed by a then 26-year-old Jamie Blanks, who had made a short horror film called Silent Number, which he had made as a thesis film while attending film school in Melbourne. Blanks had initially wanted to direct I Know What You Did Last Summer in 1997 and went so far as to direct a mock trailer for the project. But at this point, a director had already been hired for that project. Instead, because of the excitement surrounding his mock trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer, Blanks was offered the screenplay to Urban Legend.
That's weird. That's interesting that he wanted to do something like a teen slasher film and then did.
Yeah, he really wanted to do I Know What You Did Last Summer because isn't that based on a novel or a book? And he got the
think so.
scrounged money or whatever and got like loans from different people, and they put together a trailer for like what he thinks that I Know What You Did Last Summer as a movie should look like. And apparently like studios went wild, but they had already signed some dude into a contract, and I think they actually might have even tried to get rid of him. But whatever.
Oh, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but whatever way I think it worked out with lawyers and stuff, they were like, no, he's directing this movie and that's it.
And that's what I'm actually like kind of excited to eventually get in I Know What You Did Last Summer because I have not seen it since I was a teenager. Like it's been a while.
I actually have 88 films that done this. I know I keep fucking mentioning this, but they done a similar for the whole I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy. They done a very like the very same idea where you get like posters and all special features and art cards and shit like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and I don't know, like I still always enjoy these films, but then I find that as I analyze them, I'm like, oh, it's it could be better this way or that way. It's like, oh no.
Don't get me wrong, I love all these movies, and like, look, there's no point in arguing the fact that okay, so I could pick. Let me just see right off the top of my head the amount of movies that are in some way similar and have a very similar style. So you've got Scream. You've got the I Know What You Did Last Summer movies. You've got Urban Legend. You've got Valentine.
Yes.
Cherry Falls.
I'd like to revisit Cherry Falls.
You've got, let me see, what else is there?
There's so many.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a shit ton of movies that came out around that time that are all kind of like the same. I mean, Jamie.
But I feel like it was the fucking stupid. There's the '90s vibe. Everyone was into this shit.
Yeah, like Jamie Banks, 3 years after this movie, like he directed Valentine.
So he went for the same thing. I'm trying to look up this. Is like Valentine.
The same movie again.
Same thing. You know who Momo is? I don't know. That image of Momo came up.
Oh yeah, that fucking weird white face thing.
That's also a weird urban legend. And like, what's this shit? This like she has like an altar in this fucking weird abandoned building.
Here's another weird piece of information on Jamie Blanks, who directed Urban Legend. The path to landing the directing gig on Urban Legend began with Blanks receiving the screenplay for a movie then titled Scary Movie from a manager who had seen his student film at the time. This never went any further and never came to fruition. that screenplay ended up being Scream 1996.
Yeah, because it started off calling it. They wanted to call it Scary Movie. That was their first thing, and then it's funny that the Wayans brothers chose that name for their comedy, which they must have known. And also another movie that is similar to this one in style is people might shit on me that I actually like this movie is House of Wax with Paris Hilton.
I fucking love that movie. I don't
I think it's
know
good.
if anybody can notice this. Let me see if I can. Let me turn these little lights up a bit. I don't know if you can make out here. Which side is he on? Let's see. Can you see him?
Oh yeah,
That's Vincent Sinclair from House of Wax.
yeah. I remember seeing that mask in your background, and I feel like it's fairly creepy. Like
Yeah,
it looks
I need to
looks like
take some like proper
Marilyn Manson
photos
on
of it
crack.
because it even has like his little fucking weird jumper he wears and the weird like straps he has.
You should take a picture of a lot of like your, especially your background and close-ups, and even as like a post, so then fans even of like Strange Brew, and your fans can like see some of the elements of the horror masks that you have, and like some of the memorabilia, because I think that you always like you can see it, especially when we're doing smaller scale screens like this is like, but yeah, I think that people want to see it in detail. It'd be a good idea to do like a post of that.
Yeah, that's something I need to do. I always wanted to do a video of the collection, but don't know, I just never got around to it. Um,
What is she saying? Is she saying that like? Because now we find out that she is the killer, right?
mhm.
But and then she's explaining her motive right now, like many other movies like this. And she's blaming them for
Yeah, so she's looking for revenge for her fiance, um, because that Natalie character and Michelle had killed a dude in a
like,
car accident.
that's very familiar if I know
That's
what you
really
did last
weird, isn't
summer.
it? That's really fucking
It's
weird.
the exact same thing as you hit me with a car, so I'm gonna come back and kill you.
Um, I'm just looking at some stuff here that Jamie Blanks had said about this whole thing. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the job directing Scream because I was obviously well outgunned by Wes Craven, deservedly so because he is the master. Then I got the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer by Kevin, also by Kevin Williamson, and I thought that the only way I could convince producers in Hollywood that I am capable is to take the screenplay and try to direct a couple of scenes. Then I had a better idea, which was to make a trailer, shoot all the money shots, all the things that would sell this movie, and that's what I did with 3,000 Australian dollars and a whole bunch of friends. We shot it
And you
on
still
30
didn't get it?
we shot it on 35 millimeter and it turned out really well. I sent it over to the producer who was ready to hire me on the film, but the ink had already dried on the director's contract. They had hired somebody else to direct the movie, but they said, "Don't worry, we have another film for you to direct." And true to their word, 9 months later, I was offered Urban Legend based on the strength of that one trailer and one student film.
It's funny that he did all that and he still didn't get it. And then essentially, guys, hands on this, which I'm not saying is a bad movie, but some critics would probably hate this movie and would say that, yeah, it's just the same structure as every other 90s slasher film.
And you know what? In a way, it kind of feels like, if you listen to his story, it kind of feels like everything came full circle. But I can't help but feel sorry for him in a lot of ways. Like, I mean,
Yeah, I know.
he was close to maybe potentially directing Scream of all fucking things, and that didn't pan out. And then it felt like he might have got another, maybe a better lifeline with I
Yeah.
Know What You Did Last Summer, and then that didn't fucking pan out. And then he got Urban Legend, and I feel like had Urban Legend have come out earlier than those two movies, we could be talking about that as like a similar I don't think it would
No,
have
very
gotten as much
yeah,
shit because you wouldn't be able to say, "Oh, well, it's the same as Scream, and it's the same as I Know What You Did Last
yeah.
Summer. It's the same as this. It's the same as that."
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, but at the same time, do you think that Scream would be better if this director got his hands on it? I don't know. I actually really like Wes Craven, so
Yeah,
I
no,
doubt it.
no, I love majority of things that Wes Craven does, and I do think he is
Yeah,
definitely a master of horror. He's a genius. Um, so I don't even mean that, but I just feel like maybe
yeah.
if this dude had have been able to get maybe this film out, if this film had come out without those things in the conversation,
Hmm.
maybe it wouldn't have been shit on as much because a lot of the complaints about this movie aren't actually how it was shot or the characters or dialogue or anything like that. Anytime I see anyone shit on this movie, it's just, oh, it's too much like Scream. It's too much like I Know What You Did Last Summer, which
Yeah,
is
and
not
I never
really a
thought about it 'cause
directorial issue. It's
yeah,
more of a the people who wrote the script essentially just took other scripts and went, ah, yeah, we'll just make this into our own.
no, and that's what we've said too. Is that we've said that before? Is that it's not always like the fault of like the director or the actors and stuff like that. It's who edits it, who writes it.
Yep.
I will say that when I first watched this, I remember actually kind of being shocked of who was the killer and that
Mm-hmm.
a female character. I did remember like because I watched this and I was like probably 10, 11, or 12 or something like that, and I remember being like, oh, weird, it's the girl. Like, and you didn't expect. I didn't expect it actually.
Sorry
Is
for
he trying
anyone
to be a
who's
good guy?
yeah. Sorry for anyone who's listening to this. I think we were both just getting stuck into the dialogue there because there is a.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a really in depth like deep movie, but sometimes it's hard to get context on the story if you miss all the dialogue.
yeah. And because I haven't seen this in such a bit, and like I think he's because he's trying to trick her essentially to kind of like give up. Be like, I'll write the story about you. You can get away with this type of thing. The classic comeback.
I thought she was gonna do like the generic like Mo bitch.
Yeah. Like even in Scream, she doesn't. They usually shoot him in the head, and like you never, whatever her line is.
Wow, that is a powerful gun all of a sudden.
Yeah,
So didn't she shoot the cop with that a minute ago and she just fell over? And then they shot her with her own gun and she went flying through a window.
flying through the window.
Oh god, I hate Jared Leto's character so much.
Yeah.
Oh, she's more fucked up than I thought, actually.
Can I? Ah, fuck, man. You know what? I'm gonna give this a rating right now, and I think before I saw this version of it, I'd probably give it like a 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Oh no.
I'm more leaning towards like a 5.5.
We need to stop watching these movies. I feel like
I
pretty much I'm
know.
gonna not like any movie ever.
I know. And I'm not saying that it's bad, but like I find these movies iconic because I watched them at a young age, right? But I'm sure if I was like a 30-year-old stoner or something that went and saw it in theaters, I would be like, oh, it was okay, but like, and you'd always have the but. But when you're a kid, you kind of just really enjoy them. You're like, you're not supposed to watch them, and it's just kind of spooky. But it's funny because I can watch Friday the 13th over and over again and make fun of it, but still really enjoy it.
I didn't remember this
Oh,
part,
fuck.
to be honest
Yeah, I
with
didn't
you.
remember that she came back in the back of the seat, like back seat. I thought it was over.
Yeah, because it's been a while since I've seen this and I didn't ever remember
Me too.
this.
She hits Jared Leto pretty hard in the fucking head with that side of the axe. Psychopath. Wouldn't kill her. She'd be still alive.
Yeah, well, if she didn't die from being shot and flying out through a window on like the fourth story of a building,
Yeah. She's not gonna die from launching into a bridge with water.
I also would like to know. Obviously, I know she's a killer, and we have to give them like, but how did she survive falling from the top of a building?
Yeah.
Oh wow, no,
You
she's
would
conveniently
you
dead now.
yeah. Bye bye, floating away. But like how you could easily still be breathing and just look like you're like knocked out from maybe
Yeah.
like the impact of the water. But
Also,
if you're laying
don't
on your back and you're floating,
don't recover my body, so we can do some weird like obscure. And her body was never found.
I know.
Oh wow.
And now it's years later and they're telling the urban legend of another urban legend.
We're the new cool hip kids, and we're like those weird, like fucking scary movie
The
characters.
kid has 420 on his shirt. The classic stoner. The token black guy, the jock, the nerdy chick. It's literally the super generic.
Fucking mystery gang.
Yeah, Scooby
She
Doo.
does like fucking Velma.
She does. And now Velma's gay. Just so everyone needs to play importance of sexual orientation in kids shows.
Cool. Because it's me. And somehow use.
Oh, that's kind of it is kind of clever, the ending. It's so hokey, but I like it kind of.
Same. I kind of like that. And I also I feel like I said that this is a comfort movie of mine, and I I didn't remember half of the ending, but
No.
I didn't remember that bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like I said, maybe a 6 out of 10. I'm curious to see what I'm gonna think of Final Cut because I actually like that one more. I remember, so it's gonna be interesting if I'm like, oh no, this one's worse.
So okay, so you're rating it a 6 out of 10. If you were to rate it based on like slasher movies alone, obviously like they have so many tropes and like shitty kind of hokey
Yeah.
stories. If you were to rate it just based within that realm, would it still be a 6 out of 10?
I'll give it a 6.5.
Oh wow.
Maybe a 7. Okay. I'm trying not to be, but like the thing is, and I used to have different opinion that I just love like Friday the 13th movies. Like I'll watch those all day and still think they're great. Even though I will point out all the goofy shit in it, it's still
You know
really
what?
enjoyable.
So again, I'm gonna come out with a controversial horror comment. I would like to actually do some commentaries on Friday the 13th because while I've seen them all, and I probably have like 5 copies of each movie in different formats, uh, I've probably that's probably the slasher that I've watched the least.
Really?
Outside of Freddy versus Jason and the
Wow.
2009 Friday the 13th, I'd say I have seen each of those movies less than 5 times.
Wow. That's crazy.
So like when
I've
you say
seen,
that, like
oh my God.
every time someone mentions Friday the 13th, I was like, I just don't get it. And like I feel like I haven't actually like later in life I haven't given it enough time.
That's surprising, actually. I actually love Friday the 13th. Like, and nowadays maybe Michael Myers is my favorite just because it was especially the older films. He was not the supernatural being. He was just a crazy ass psychopath that killed people. And I always got that when people said their favorite's Michael. I used to love Freddy Krueger. Just because he could talk and his attitude, but Freddy and Jason were I feel like my two favorites, and then I liked Michael Myers because I was even just saying to Chelsea recently when we watched Friday the 13th Part 3 outside. We almost got all the way through, but it was too cold. I was like, and I like chewed a couple grams of mushrooms, and I was like putting my sweater over my nose, and Chelsea's like, "Oh, are you cold?" And she was like had a winter coat on and shit, or like a big blanket, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm starting to get cold. Maybe this is a bad idea." And I still like it. Like, and I've seen it probably every like give or take some, probably less, but every Friday the 13th movie, and I don't know, probably over 10 times, maybe even more. And I just like the idea of Jason. And when I was a kid, I used to like draw him. Like I was super into art, and I used to just draw Jason with all these bodies around him and shit. I don't know. I always liked Jason.
Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't like Jason or anything, but I feel like he's probably the slasher, like, of the most iconic slashers that is
Yes,
probably
yeah.
given the least amount of time in recent years.
You know what I
Um,
really want to do a commentary on? Part three is okay, but like my favorite is part four, and I actually like the fifth one where it's not actually him, but I like that like Corey Feldman's in the fourth one, and Crispin Glover I think is too.
what I would love to do, and this is a fairly lofty goal to be honest,
Yeah.
I would love to go through the entire Friday the 13th and the entire Nightmare on Elm Street, right up until Freddy versus Jason. Now, obviously, not one after another over the course of maybe every now and again, but I would love to go through them.
As a commentary with me, you're saying?
Yeah, like from the start.
Yeah.
I would love to do both of those.
First, I thought I was
again.
like, you want to do all of the entire movie, like movies in a day, and I was like, I'm gonna have to wake up at 1 a.m. and then just like watch them.
I done that once, obviously not for a podcast or anything, but me and some friends
Yeah.
thought it would be really funny to watch the entire Leprechaun series back to back.
Oh my god.
It was literally right by the end of it. I think I was like fucking hallucinating. I was like, this feels so bizarre and weird. We had the curtains drawn like all day, and I was like, I feel like there's something wrong.
And that's why there's stuff coming. Like Anton really wants to do like a in space series where we do Jason X and then Leprechaun in space and then Pinhead in space. All are fairly horrible, but Jason X is fucking dope. But like the Leprechaun in space, I remember I've seen like once and it was like just so over the top. But I loved Leprechaun Back to the Hood. We used to laugh so hard some of the scenes
So
because it's so ridiculous and over the top. Like when the guy drive-by baseball bats the dude, and I remember me and my friends would go back on the DVD and just keep watching that scene over and over. And now retrospect is not that funny, but we were just dumb kids.
um, how their movies ever even got made? Like
I
you had
know.
Leprechaun in the Hood, and then what's the sequel?
Back to the Hood.
Yes, like how did this even?
I know, and I, I think there's a lot of stuff coming. And I would be down to do that, even if it comes later on, or because it's such a long series. If we start it even next summer, kind of leading up to Halloween, is like even every 2 weeks do a commentary on like Friday 13th, and then the year after that do like a Nightmare on Elm Street, because I do like those films and I would sit down and watch them over and over again and actually like talk about them, because some of them have fairly iconic scenes, some of them have very funny iconic scenes of like, you've seen the fifth one, right? I actually like, as I got older, I enjoyed the fifth one a lot more than I did when I was younger, when I thought like, oh, it's not actually Jason, like whatever, that's bullshit, I want it to be Jason. But watching it now, I actually do like the setup and like the stalking of Jason and the newer costume, and that the beginning scene where the kid's eating the chocolate bar. He's like, do you want a chocolate bar? And then the guy like hits him with the axe and shit like that.
I'd be really interested to watch all them again. I think with you, seen as like
I love those
yeah,
movies
like
too.
I feel like you've watched them a lot. You probably know a lot about them, and just the entire thing. I think it would be interesting for me to, like I said, I it's not that I
Yeah.
haven't watched them, but I feel like out of the icons of horror, uh, Jason as a full franchise is probably the one I've given the least amount of time to.
And I think it'd be fairly fun for the fans, because I've watched, and I would watch it again before we do this, is like I've watched a bunch of documentaries about Friday the 13th and like the background of it and how they filmed it, and like Tom Savini and all these like characters that were like essentially working in this film era. And I would talk about it. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I would definitely rewatch some of those docs. And that's what I've said. I've watched like the 6 hour ones of the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th way more than I've seen the stuff on Michael Myers. But I think this was fairly good, and I'm actually more excited to talk about Final Cut later on, just because I remember enjoying that one more, and I like the whole like fencing mask.
Which I don't have the tape anymore, and then I
That's
upgraded
cool,
to
yeah.
the Scream Factory, which has a shit ton of special features, and then it went from that then to obviously the one from.
It's like, why do you need so many
I
copies
know,
of
yeah, it's
movies?
like, but I'm like fanatical about shit like this. It's like fucking, it's like some form of like. I
Do you
don't
have
know.
like a shitload? Like how? Like do you have like just a thing of like just all your movies? Like
Yeah,
a shelf?
yeah, an entire bookcase.
I want to get like that, but I feel like Chelsea would be like, you have too many because I already like we don't want to know where to put them really, and it's just like they're physical copies of things. Like I have a bunch, but I don't have nearly as many as you do because I lost a lot of them along the way.
And that's actually what happened to me, right? If I hadn't have like lost, given away, moved house and stuff, I'd probably have 10 times that. But what I done was at one point I convinced myself I was like, I don't need a physical collection. That's bullshit. That's for like fucking dorks. And I was, but not just that. Like I was like kind of going through one of those stages where I was like, I'm gonna be a minimalist. I'm gonna put everything into like my dream, and anything outside of that that's seen as a luxury, I don't want.
I kind of get that, but at the same time, when I started like recently buying horror movies, I was like the physical copies where I have tons on digital. Like I have tons on my PlayStation. I have a couple on like YouTube and stuff like that, but I have tons on my PlayStation. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while. I'm gonna rent it or buy it or whatever like that. But like getting the physical copies is kind of fun, and it's like I have an addiction to collecting things. Like there was a
Yeah,
time I collected a bunch of comics, and guess what? They just fucking sit there. Like I haven't like I sold some of them, but they just kind of sit there. I never look at them. And then I was collecting like horror memorabilia, and then I'm like, I have too much. I can't get any more because I have no space for it.
it
It's
is
like
an
an
issue.
addiction to
Like, and
collecting
yeah,
things.
and I have that really weird personality thing as well, where like I am addicted to collecting shit. Like I started collecting vinyls.
Yeah, I collect
Um,
records too. I started collecting records. So it's like I have too many records
you know
now,
what I mean? And then
which I
like,
want more.
and then I went back and like I started to buy a lot of like secondhand DVDs and movies and stuff. I would go
Yeah.
to like charity shops, thrift stores, online. People were selling like there was a an older woman. I think her son had like went away with the army or something, and like he had like
Yeah.
500 movies, and majority of them were horror. And she was like, "Look, I'll give you the whole lot for like 50 if you can
Oh,
draw a
I
good
would take
collector."
that too.
And I was like, "Sure thing." And I knew that I had basically all of them, and I didn't need them. And I was like, I have nowhere for these. And I was like, I'm just going to take them anyway. And then like I would convince myself, I would go, yeah, but these things go out of print and then they'll be worth money and I can like sell
So
them. I was like,
stupid.
realistically, I'm never going to do any of that.
No, realistically, I was gonna say your kid's gonna bury you with them. He'd be like, I don't have any use for this shit because he'll be living in a VR headset, and then he'll just like kick your DVDs in your grave.
Do you know what's bizarre? Like at some stage, showing that to a kid is going to be like, what the fuck is that?
Why do you have that? Everything's on my headset in my eyeball
What
because
the
they have
fuck
like the
is that?
Google eyeball thing too.
I tried to explain to even my kid, like he's 8, when I showed him a tape, and he was like, "What's that?" He's like, "Why is it so big?" And I was like, "Well, this is what the
Try to
TV's.
explain it.
We had an old TV in the shed, and I was like, that's what." He was like, "What's the big thing on the back of the TV?" And I was like, "That's the TV." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, we didn't have like fucking flat screen
Flat
smart
screens
TVs
and
that you could
shit.
like scream at, and they just put on whatever you want."
They would look and it would look so bad. I remember having one of those like really shitty TVs in my basement from like the I would say 70s maybe, and you like click the button to change. You have to go up to it. It has like the little speaker on it. It's like
So fucking
brown and
bad.
tiny. And at the time, I was like, cool, like I got a TV in my basement, but it looked like shit. And that's why I watched like movies like Blair Witch and stuff like that, laying on my floor, looking up at this tiny little TV, and like getting shit scared. But now in retrospect, if you took a kid and sat him down and gave him that TV, he would be like having to put his face directly on the TV to see it properly.
That I went back a while ago and tried to play like PS1 games even.
Oh,
And
there's it's
I was like, wow, I'm getting a fucking migraine. I was like, I can't even look at the fucking graphics. They're so bad.
I got a buddy that plays like Nintendo still, and I've played Nintendo kind of recently, like Mario 3, and I was like, this is so bad and it's so hard. I can't fucking do this anymore.
That's
It's
because
not
we're getting
nostalgic.
yeah, we're getting spoon fed everything now, you see, so you can't go
I
back and
know.
play those tough games. Yeah, I would probably, to wrap it up, I've been
You're
thinking
gonna
about
give it
it
a 10
again.
out of 10, I bet, right? Aren't you? Like,
No,
I love this movie.
as we were chatting about it there, I was kind of thinking about it more realistically, and I would probably say similar to you, probably maybe between a 6 and a 7, maybe somewhere like
Yeah.
that. Um, I used to be like, oh, 10 out of 10, but now I try to separate, like, I suppose my nostalgia and like
Yeah.
that kind of
I make
thing.
one more point. What is with the poster that you got? Why is it it's a guy's face in
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I don't know because there's multiple versions as well. There's one that has just an eyeball.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, there's another one. Let me see. Does it have it on any of these covers? There's another one where you can see the hood through it. There's another
Yeah,
one
I
where
don't
it's like
understand the guy with the face paint, and strange how there's so many like probably different posters of, and then it
there's
has nothing
another
to do with
different
the
one
film.
again.
Oh, I like that one though.
There's the one with the eyeball. Yeah, that's actually a good point. I need to see.
Like you know how they do posters, like there's some been some horror movies where they do a poster before they even are done the film, and it's something that's nothing to do with the movie, and they still put it out, and it's like you guys are fucking lazy.
And you know what? I thought at the time, I feel like that worked every single time.
Yeah. It's true. I thought this was fairly good, and we're definitely gonna do final cut. There's a lot of stuff coming. I'm fairly excited. I feel like it should be out the time this comes out. I'm debating of having on the main show or doing it as a Patreon episode, but like Killer Clowns, that's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be all me, Anton, and Aaron, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, likewise. As always, ClassHorrorCast.com and First Class Horror on Instagram. There's going to be a shit ton of stuff by the time you're hearing this. Like we'll have released probably a shit ton of
Tons of stuff.
and there's a lot more to come. It's getting to the point now where I feel like it's just going to be how do we structure it to actually get it all done.
Yeah, because now we have like a laundry list of stuff.
Like there's so much stuff. I feel like every time we have a conversation, it's like, oh yeah, I was just thinking about this thing. Actually, we could
do
that.
this.
We could do something about this. We could do something about that.
I was just talking to you just before recording about doing another movie that I'm like, I forgot about that movie and I haven't seen since I was like a teenager and I liked it. Let's talk about it.
Where can people find you, support you?
Obviously the best way now, I guess, is like, cause it's where I'm most active on is Instagram. Obviously we have like a Facebook Strange Brew podcast and a group page that's not as big as it used to be because the first one got taken down, but it's called the Strange Brews Hose Heads, the Hose Heads group page. But mostly Instagram is the best place. Stranger Podcast, and a good way to support us is subscribe to the YouTube because we're releasing a lot of content where you can watch stuff, especially for things like the Halloween specials that we've done. And I think this might come even after Halloween, but if you haven't seen those, go back because there's going to be a live special where it's me, Aaron, Anton, and Billy, and then we also did like very funny episodes, fucking Sex with Ghosts Part 1 and 2, and then the Halloween special we're doing like a YouTube thing. So if this is out after and you haven't heard them, go check them out on YouTube because you'll be able to see a lot of the imagery and the pictures that we're going to show and stuff, or we did show.
And the ridiculous costumes that we were wearing.
Yeah, I'm fucking excited to get dressed up. I said to Billy because I was like, do you know what? Because I was like, you got to have a costume for the thing, but he has like funny costumes that he could put on like a banana and stuff that he's done before, or a hot dog. And I think I said banana twice. That's strange.
You did.
But
like,
there.
Whoa, is that some like glitch in the fucking matrix?
That's my brain. And then I was like, you got to think about it to do something good. I was like, do you know what I'm being yet? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, good. I thought that I told you, but you obviously forgot. So I'm like so excited. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Because essentially we're dressing up twice on Strange Brew side because we're doing the Halloween special and then the live special on the Halloween Friday at 6:30. If this comes out anytime before, but even if it comes out after, go check that shit out because I'm sure it's going to be a fucking riot.
Yeah, I would imagine so. A last thing for me, I guess, is what are some urban legends that that you guys have heard, or
true, yeah.
Is there anything more obscure maybe that we haven't heard of or mentioned, or
that should cover?
Yeah, even a different variation maybe of a story. Like obviously, you had said about the telephone game or whatever.
Yeah,
like I would have always known that as Chinese whispers.
So weird.
So yeah, I'd be interested to hear, like, do people have other variations of any of the urban legends?
I agree. I want to hear that too. I want to hear people more interact. So you can always like email Aaron or me, which is on like the sites and stuff like that, like the Instagram and the www.strangerpodcast.com. Like your website too. So you could always do that, which is kind of fun. And eventually, once we start getting more people, even on the Instagram, you can message us. Maybe like next year, we can always put together an episode where we read stories from listeners, which I think would be fairly funny.
That's something that I really want to do. I've been looking at that a lot. Is doing maybe a listener episode every now and again, maybe once a month, once every 2 months or something.
We were debating on creating a voicemail, which I don't know if it's a good idea because we might get some like crazy shit, someone yelling at us.
I mean, it would probably make for some fun content.
I know. I guess, yeah, that's a good place to end it kind of thing. But, stay strange. There's a lot of stuff coming that I don't know, you might get sick of hearing us, but we have so many ideas that I'm really excited about talking about several different movies.
And not to cut you off, I'm going to let you sign off on this. I don't have the very same as you have like I feel like you have a really cool like intro for yourself, and
Yeah.
you always seem to be quite good with outro on all the shows. I've yet to come up with like that thing like you said, like, you know, things I've heard like Stay Strange, I've heard even for horror podcasts, I've heard all these like, I guess they're kind of hokey, but like they have like this little thing that they say, and I'm like, fuck, how did I never come up with something like that?
Yeah, you could stay strange and get ready for a more commentary on films that will be a cut above the rest. And now cue a chainsaw. Stupid.
Bye.
Bye.